Good evening to tonight's meeting of Medway's Full Council on this St George's Day. As usual, this meeting is being live streamed via the Council's website, and I would like to welcome everyone who is watching online, as well as everyone present here tonight. My chaplain, the Reverend Edward Wright, will now lead us in a moment of reflection and prayer. Edward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, everyone. St George's Day in St George's Centre, and this morning some of us gathered as you, Mr. Mayor, raised the flag at Gun Wharf. I appreciate there can be various sort of connotations that come to mind. So, to be clear, this is a brief celebration of St George's, not to do with any particular type of nationalism or anything, but to remember his example, in order to be inspired and heartened to follow it. As we heard better put this morning, and apologies to those who were there, St George was born in Cappadocia and beheaded in Lydda, known today as Lod in Israel, probably on April the 23rd, hence today, in the year 303. He actually never came to England and only supplanted St Edmund as England's patron saint in the mid-14th century. People differ, but probably to do with Edward III establishing the Order of the Garter. Several other countries claim him, regard him as the patron saint. I noted down Ethiopia, Portugal, Georgia, Palestine. George was a senior officer in the Roman army, and he was put to death because he defied the Roman Emperor Diocletian's anti-Christian edict and refused to renounce his Christian faith. He believed, obviously, in standing loyally for Jesus Christ, and that was more important than life itself. So we remember, don't we, the qualities, his courage, his loyalty, his integrity, also his protection of the vulnerable. He gave aid to the persecuted Christians before he was beheaded, and support for the poor. Before his arrest, he gave his possessions to the poor and freed his slaves. We shouldn't allow the overlay of myths and fantasies that are added by people with perhaps hazy concepts of religion to cloud our appreciation of the truth of his life and example. He was set, as Paul urges Timothy to do, on pursuing righteousness, godliness, faith, love, endurance, and gentleness, on fighting the good fight of faith. He believed there was a higher purpose and looked to a higher goal. You might say his hope and aspiration went beyond advancement in the military or doing his bit for the empire. So his example can also be an encouragement to rise above self-interest and small goals, to take on the dragons of poverty and inequality, to make, for example, marmot partnerships work. In short, to aim high, as has been said here before. And if, while so aiming, our sight may be raised even higher, we might reflect on the one who inspired St George. Again, we have to try not to let the accretions of religiosity confuse our perception. We can look back at the truths of the life of the one who laid down his life for truth and love and the protection of all those vulnerable to death. So to a prayer, and do join with an amen if that's appropriate for you. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the example of St George and others who have stood firm in faith down the centuries for truth and integrity. We thank you for the good that has come to our nation through its Christian heritage, but acknowledge also that it has sometimes been misused. Have mercy on our land and on this community, we pray. Bless all those who have taken on the responsibilities of being councillors. Bless all those who work for the council, and bless this meeting tonight. Amidst disagreeing agreeably, May the outcomes agreed prove good for our communities. May the time be well used. We do continue to pray for the future of Medway, for courage and integrity in addressing issues that confront the community and fighting evils, for determination in protecting the vulnerable. Bless the people who live and work here. We pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Edward. Apologies for absence. I've received apologies from Councillor Spalding. Councillor Peake.
Campbell, Shocker and Emily.
Thank you. Councillor Kemp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I have apologies from Councillor Wildy and Councillor Barrett. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Turpin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, apologies from Councillor Williams.
Councillor Vi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Declarations of interest on page 7. Oh,
Councillor Shocker's late rather than absent. Thank you.
noted. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, declarations of interest. Are there any declaration of disclosable pecuniary interests or any other significant interest from members of the council? Please clearly describe the nature of your interest if you do declare one. Do I have any? Thank you very much. Is it agreed that I sign the minutes of the meeting of council held on the 25th of February 2026 as an accurate record?
Agreed.
Thank you, members. In opening my announcements, I want to let everyone know that I will be taking agenda item 11 as the last item this evening, given I have received some requests from members to discuss information on the blue papers. I want members to be able to have a full discussion on this matter without the risk of inadvertently straying into the detail on the blue papers. I'm also clear that we must take any decisions on this report in public at the end of the debate, so the press and public will be readmitted at this point. Now, this is the last ordinary meeting of my mayoral year. Hard to believe 49 weeks have elapsed since we first sat here. Now I'll be holding a Thanksgiving celebration even at the Corn Exchange on Friday the 1st of May as my final mayoral event to fundraise for my charities Caring Hands and Slide Away. And of course I look forward to seeing those of you that have bought tickets there. And for those many members who are not yet and are not coming, you are very welcome to make donations to those charities before our office ends. And continuing last council's shout-outs for outstanding members of our community, I'd also like to take the opportunity to mention a special lad that I met with last week. Bobby is a remarkable 10-year-old who recently raised over £1,000 for the Oliver Fisher NICU at Medway Hospital, following his little brother receiving life-saving treatment there. A fantastic achievement, and I met with him and his stepmum last week and presented them with the Young Citizen Award, which was an absolute pleasure to do. Please can I remind members, particularly those who choose to stand up when speaking, to speak clearly into the microphones to ensure people in the public gallery and watching on our live stream can hear you properly. And can members ensure, as usual, that written copies of any amendments are brought up to the top table first. Finally, as we ask every time, I would also ask all members to only interrupt another member while they are speaking if there is a genuine point of order or point of personal explanation to be made. I call on the Leader of the Council to make any announcements.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I have no announcements apart from to wish everybody a very happy St George's Day.
Thank you very much. Are there any members of the public that wish to hand in a petition? If so, please come straight to the microphone and read out the title of the petition. No, thank you very much. Will any councillors now indicate if they wish to hand in a petition? Please note that any member should leave their petition on their table and Democratic Services staff will collect it at the end of the meeting. Any member? Okay, thank you very much. Public questions, as shown on page 25 of the agenda. We will now deal with the one public question. Yeah, is he here? Yeah. May I remind that the member called upon to answer that neither the response to the question nor to any supplementary question may not exceed 3 minutes. Mr. Wells, please come up to the microphone to ask your question.
I'm asking this question on behalf of myself and as part of Medway United Nations Association. I'm sure the Council would agree with me that the appalling scenes we have witnessed in the Middle East have been shocking to witness. The UK is one of the world's top arms exporters, with 2025 seeing a record-breaking 20 billion plus in defence export deals. The Kent Pension Fund, KPF, operates under the local government pension scheme, the LGPS, and funds are invested in a number of companies supplying weapons or military technology. The KPF manages pensions for Medway Council employees, and these investments total hundreds of millions of pounds across the LGPS. The Kent County Council Pension Fund has faced scrutiny for investments in such companies implicated in the international arms trade, including those linked to conflicts in Yemen and Gaza. The local government pension scheme funds, including Kent's, by investing in companies, have enabled violations of international law. Wolf and Forest's Pension Committee formally confirmed this year that it can divest from companies linked to the international arms trade without any material detrimental impact on its financial position. When explosive weapons are used in populated areas, civilians account for roughly 90% of all casualties. My question is this. There have been calls to move towards more ethical investments, including divesting from potential military ties, with campaigns highlighting the ethical implications of using public sector pensions for these investments. Would the Council consider using Wolf and Forest Council's example and commit to a gradual and proactive divestment from some of those companies recklessly supplying weapons as part of the international arms trade, resulting in widespread civilian casualties?
Thank you. Councillor Maple, would you like to respond?
Thank you, and thank you very much for the question, both in a personal capacity and on behalf of the excellent organisation, the Medway United Nations Association. Unlike other councils across the country, we are part of a wider pension fund, so we are indeed part of that Kent Pension Fund, and of course, with local government reorganisation, those structures will be looked at in due course over the next couple of years. I'm really pleased that from the administration's perspective, we have Councillor Mark Jones, someone who's got a long-standing track record of pensions expertise and knowledge, both from his civil service and trade union background. And he certainly is ensuring that those conversations are happening. The pension fund has recently started an investment subgroup. That's had its first meeting. That will be meeting again next month. And that is open to all appointees to Kent Pension Fund Committee. And as I say, Councillor Mark Jones attends both the committee but also that subgroup. You're right to highlight over history, pension funds have been considered in all sorts of different political aspects, be that environmental, certainly the conversation around pension funds investing in tobacco, and most recently, the situation that you raised in your question. So I'm sure that that subgroup, who have got the statutory responsibility alongside the wider committee, to of course manage those pension funds carefully. They are of course deferred pay for hard-working women and men who have given their service to local government, both here in Medway and across our region, but also taking into account representations like this, and there have been others, not just on the issue of war and defence investment, but also importantly on issues like the environment as well. So I've got no doubt that investment subgroup, which is looking at these ethical issues, will take that into account in due course. Thank you.
Mr. Wells, would you like to ask a short supplementary question?
I would. Thank you. Thank you, Vince, for your response. You've gone some way to answering my question, so thank you for that. So my supplementary question is this. So several councils have passed symbolic motions asking their pension fund representatives to raise ethical investment concerns with the administering authority. The motions did not bind the pension fund, but expressed the council's position and asked its representatives to advocate for change. Would the council consider bringing forward a similar symbolic motion?
Councillor Maple.
Thank you for the supplementary question. I've answered a similar question, not necessarily on pension funds, but more generally about bringing forward motions. That's not in the gift of me individually. We have political groups, and each political group will have their methodologies deciding which particular issue or motion comes forward. And of course, most recently, we have slightly altered how motions and numbers of motions have come forward. We're seeing that tonight, for example. So every political group, there's 4 political groups here, they've all heard that. They will give that due consideration as to when they bring forward their motions in due course. Thank you for the supplementary question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Come now to agenda item 7, the motions as detailed on page 29 of the agenda. Call upon Councillor Perfect to propose the motion at item A.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening. The health of our community should be of the utmost importance to every member of this chamber. The fact that we have a 10-year life expectancy gap between each part of Medway, between 2 parts of Medway that we all live in, should worry us all. As an opposition, we support the administration in all of its initiatives to drive this life expectancy gap down, and we firmly believe that the council has a strong track record through its exceptional public health team in doing this, most recently seen through the Marmot Place initiative. But Mr. Mayor, we have an emerging crisis in our health sector, which is worsening by the day, and this has severe implications for our residents. Within Medway, our hospital has consistently been rated as requires improvement in all areas by the Care Quality Commission, and the leadership merry-go-round stumbling from failed strategy to failed strategy, with a whole slew of chief executives with broken promises along the way which have had real consequences. Staff and patients at Medway Maritime Hospital and within the wider Foundation Trust have consistently been let down by poor leadership, and it is simply not good enough. Outcomes at the hospital are poor, and it has real consequences. The now near regular appearance from the Trust at the Council's very effective Health and Adult Social Care Scrutiny Committee demonstrate the poor leadership and that there is much to be done. Similarly, our Integrated Care Board, all we read and see is in constant challenge and pressure. A 50% headcount reduction, issues of toxic culture and challenges for staff, and services being rebrokered without any consultation or procurement process being clearly run with key stakeholders, including this very council. All of this is leading to poor outcomes. And if Councillor Wildey were here, he would be saying not helping our GP crisis either. This impacts the council as we provide a range of key services in this space. Adult social care is now the biggest area of financial challenge facing this council. We support the work that the administration have been doing in right-sizing and the need to manage demand, but we also need the NHS locally to step up and show some more leadership too. As an opposition, we will always engage constructively on a local and a national level with the administration and the government to reform social care and cut NHS waiting lists, but we need to see bold action and delivery, instead of more reviews and press releases. This motion, a letter to the Secretary of State, is very simple and is about making it clear to him that we won't accept this for our community and its implications for the services this council provides. The actions that this council can take are very limited without the support of NHS England and the Department for Health and Social Care. The NHS in Medway is in need of reform, not just more money, and this letter, very simple in its nature, will hopefully start the conversation, and we hope for cross-party support tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is that supported? Councillor Joy, do you wish to speak now or reserve the right? Thank you. Councillor Mrs Turpin?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move an amendment.
How are we doing? Has everybody got one? Yes? Thank you. Councillor Mrs Turpin.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll be fairly brief. I appreciate that the two main parties want to keep this part of the agenda short, keep it short. So I'll try and be brief. But I basically agree with the motion that's been brought forward this evening, but just felt that it needed a couple of other sort of recommendations to just sort of focus it a little bit so that we're not just writing to an empty void when we write to the Secretary of State. So basically I've added 2 points on there. One is just requesting a formal written response from the Department of Health, and then with 3 sort of main points. So to just discuss the long-term financial strategy for local authorities, and not just Medway, but obviously focusing on Medway, because this is not something in the short term. This is something that we're going to be having an issue with for years to come. And then to talk about the financial position of the Kent and Medway ICB, and also to just sort of discuss what their views are and what can be done about the leadership stability at Medway NHS. And then the third point there is to establish a cross-party task group that will review adult social care pressures, and that will be, again, enable focused engagement with partners, because obviously we appreciate this is not something that the local authority does in isolation. We have to work with not just the NHS but lots of other partners as well. So I think it's something that we can then talk with these partners with, and then bring back a report to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. So I move this motion and hope that the Chamber can support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that supported? Councillor Pearce, you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
Wish to speak now, Mr Mayor. Thank you. Thank you, Mr Mayor, and happy St George's Day to everyone. One of the top issues residents raise with me, and I'm sure I'm not alone here, is Medway Hospital, particularly how the hospital is managing to cope not just with the existing population, but an additional 25,000 houses proposed in Labour's local plan. They are seriously concerned and worried about the impacts that this will have. So I absolutely support the amendment put forward by my colleague, Councillor Turpin. We all need answers now to how health services cope at the present, but also, more importantly, how they will manage in the future. That's it. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pearce. We are now debating the amendment. Do I have any member? Fitz?
Yeah, we have no issue. Happy to support. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other member? Okay, I would go back to you, Councillor Perfect, as a proposer.
No,
Oh,
go back to Liz.
all right, okay. Apologies, members, just a moment. Okay. Right. Are you, it's not on my screen. Oh yeah, you've come up now. Okay, Councillor Murray.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to propose an amendment, so we need to vote on this one.
On this one
Yeah,
first.
thank you.
Right,
So back to Liz.
okay. Councillor Turbin, I come back to you as proposer of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Perfect for agreeing to support this amendment. Nothing further to add. Thank you.
Okay, we will now move to the vote on the amendment. If I could see those in favour, please. Okay, and those against, please. Thank you, members. The amendment is lost. Councillor Murray? Okay, the amendment's being distributed, members. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I do accept that both the main motion and the last amendment are well-intentioned. But what our amendment is seeking to do is to point out that the background to how things are going locally in the NHS is not quite as apocalyptic as either suggest. And I can give Councillor Turpin reassurance that all of the discussions with partners and the other things that she mentioned are happening all of the time. And that is how we came to have a new adult social care strategy by consulting widely with other providers and partners right across the NHS and indeed the public themselves. And of course, everybody in this chamber has had an opportunity to debate the investment that we put into adult social care, the restructuring, and all of the changes associated with it, and also had an opportunity through scrutiny to do that very, very thoroughly indeed. On leadership at Medway Maritime Trust, we have expressed concern, and that is in the public domain, about instability. 5 chief executives in 7 years is not acceptable to anybody. But what I do want to do is give the interim leadership under Siobhan Callanan, who has agreed to stay, a person with a nursing background who is well respected for staff and has made some positive changes, to give her as interim CEO an opportunity to achieve some stability and to give the new CEO who is coming, we've got a lot of interest coming in now for the post, and I've been contacted by several people, and there will be stakeholder involvement in the interviewing. And just lately, the Trust is doing well. We're now 11th nationally for waiting times for diagnostics. Waits for planned treatment have reduced, with only 0.6% of patients now waiting over 52 weeks for treatment, and have just fallen very short, but only a little bit, of the being within the 62 days of referral for cancer patients. 75% are getting those referrals. They're figures that came out last week from NHS England last Thursday, and we hope that when the March figures comes out, things will be better. What I want to do with the ICB is give them a chance. Yes, they've been asked by the government to reduce their costs by 50%. They are restructuring. There is new leadership. We're working together through the Health and Wellbeing Board. And I don't want to damn with either faint praise or criticism until we see that that's happening. But I can assure everyone in the chamber that we are monitoring that and will continue to do so. So the amendment is kept in a good spirit. I have kept your intention to write to the Secretary of State, and I will do that, but it's in the context of an NHS in Medway in recovery, down but not out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Is that supported? Councillor MacDonald, do you wish to speak now?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to second Councillor Murray's amendment to this motion. Let me start by saying that health is not and should never be an issue for party politics. As chair of HASC, I say that often because it's true. When it comes to our residents' health, their access to care and pressures on our hospitals, GPs, social care teams and community services, there is no room for point scoring, there's only room for responsibility. That is why I welcome the recognition within this motion that Medway Council has a significant statutory role in health, public health, prevention, reducing inequalities and supporting integrated care. Because we do. And I also welcome the acknowledgement that the system is under enormous pressure, because it is, Mr. Mayor. Adult social care is under immense strain. Demand continues to rise year on year. Delayed discharges, pressure on emergency departments, access to GP appointments, mental health provision, dentistry, all directly impact local government and, most importantly, our residents. We see that reality every single day. I know how serious these challenges are, and I also know how hard many frontline staff are working despite those pressures. But this amendment is important because it strengthens the motion by ensuring it reflects balance, accuracy, and constructive leadership, not simply criticism. Yes, there has been change within Medway NHS Foundation Trusts. Yes, there are real concerns around the Kent and Medway system, including financial pressures within the ICB. But we must also recognise the work already being undertaken, the scrutiny already happening, and the partnerships that must continue if we are going to improve outcomes. HASC has not shied away from that challenge. We have been robust, and we have also asked those difficult questions. We have demanded better communication, stronger leadership, and real accountability, particularly around the Medway Maritime Hospital. And we will continue to do so, Mr. Mayor. But writing to the Secretary of State must not simply be a gesture. It must be meaningful, evidence-led and focused on solutions. It must reflect the lived experience of residents waiting too long for treatment, and it must reflect the frustration of families trying to navigate broken systems and reflect the reality of social care teams carrying impossible demand. This amendment helps us do that. It ensures the letter is not just about blame, not about the outcomes, and not just about concern, but about action. Not just about political headlines, but about genuine system improvement. Our residents do not care who gets the credit. They care whether they can get an appointment and whether their loved ones are cared for safely and whether services simply work. That is what matters, Mr. Mayor. So tonight, let us send a united message from this chamber, a message that Medway will continue to hold the system to account, and a message that we will work cross-party where needed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. A reminder, members, we're now debating the amendment. Do I have Councillor Lawrence, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As a member of the Health and Wellbeing Board who regularly receives reports from our health partners, I am increasingly alarmed. A failure of financial management and systemic lack of external accountability is creating a perfect storm. What was once an NHS problem has now evolved into a Medway Council financial problem. We are seeing a total failure of integration, where the instability of the local NHS is being directly subsidised by this council's budget and by extension the residents of my ward, Hempstead and Wigmore. Nowhere is this clearer than in the Kent and Medway ICB's so-called recovery plan, which we discussed recently. When this plan came before the board, I was and remain deeply critical of its viability. We are being presented with recovery trajectories that feel less like strategic roadmap and more like a work of fiction. The ICB is under immense financial duress, yet the recovery strategy rely on new ways of working without any evidence of how these will be achieved. The plan ignores the demographic reality of our ageing population. If the ICB cannot balance its books without cutting frontline services or delaying integration, the recovery is an illusion. My concern is that the plan lacks the granular detail required to protect Medway's specific interests. We are being swept into a Kent-wide deficit and Medway is paying the price for this mismanagement. The financial instability is exacerbated by the revolving door of leadership at the Medway NHS Foundation Trust. Stability is the bedrock of improvement. How can we align our joint strategic needs assessment or our public health goals with a trust that is in constant crisis? Without consistent leadership, strategy becomes a moving target. We need partners who are here for the long haul, not just for the reorganisation. The most sobering evidence of this failure is the £12 million pressure on our adult social care budget. It is fundamental truth of local government finance, where the NHS fails to facilitate timely discharges or where the ICB fails to fund community infrastructure, that burden falls on us. Every day a patient sits in a hospital bed because the community care is not there, another £1 is added to the deficit. We are essentially being asked to bankroll the gaps left by our failing healthcare system. Mr Mayor, I'm sure that our original amendment would have satisfied everyone, but the Labour group obviously want to put their own stamp on it. So I'm sure we will be supporting this amendment. But, Mr Mayor, I do think we cannot sit here and pretend everything is all right in our healthcare system. This is not about politics. This is about the healthcare of our population. It only ever suits the Labour Party to talk about healthcare as politics when they're in opposition, not when they're in no power. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Joy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I think I'm on now. Thank you, Mr Mayor. One thing I wanted to bring up, we know they've had challenges, but local government over the last 15 years had challenges. And at Medway Council, we've been fortunate of strong leadership and a strong leadership team. 10 years ago, we had Neil, Perry and Jane sitting up there. But you wouldn't notice any change with Richard, Bipinda and Wayne sitting there, continuing to deliver strong leadership throughout the council. This has been built on building strong development through our workforce. And where we need to bring somebody from the outside is making sure they meet the standards that we expect at Medway Council. Some of the names that have come through from the bottom to the top includes our Chief Executive, Richard Hicks. Mark Breathwick, who's sadly had to leave us due to ill health, started at the bottom and made it all the way up to Assistant Director. And Kelly Cogger. And we've benefited from that continuous development in making sure we have a strong foundation and a strong backup to that foundation. The Medway, Kent and Medway Integrated Care Board and the Medway NHS Foundation Trust doesn't seem to have that. And there is no continuation. And we need that to deliver strong healthcare and making sure that we're supporting all of our residents in Medway. We need in them organisations what we take for granted at Medway Council. And that is the only way we can challenge that. And we need to be challenging government because the NHS and NHS departments answer to government. They don't answer to local government. And we need to make sure that we've got trust and confidence in that senior leadership team, and they are building for the future. That when the chief executive steps down, there is somebody just as good or better to move into that position. And we continue to demand it here at Medway Council, and regardless of whoever the administration is, they continue to deliver strong leadership, and we're very fortunate to have them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I did have a couple of lights that came on and went off. A reminder that the Conservative group have both their contributors to the motion amendment. Councillor Lemmas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We will be supporting this amendment from the Labour Group this evening in the spirit of cross-party collegiality. We also think the original amendment was sufficient. The issue at hand cannot be understated in its significance or importance. And actually, I would like to commend Councillor MacDonald for his leadership in tackling this issue on the Relevant Overview and Scrutiny Committee. He is quite formidable in that role, and so he should be. It is completely inappropriate for an organisation to appoint someone to run a Medway hospital and another hospital at the same time. Those people must be held to account, and the ICB, in my opinion, is not fit for purpose. So it's absolutely right that we write to the Secretary of State, and I think they should come down to have a visit to see for themselves the state of affairs, and I would encourage the contacts of the Labour administration to help ensure that that happens. Thank you.
Thank you. I go back to the proposer of the amendment, Councillor Murray.
Much, Mayor Clark. And there's a lot of love in the room for you, Richard, and your colleagues. I noticed there was a bit less love for the outgoing Tory leader, but I suppose that is to be expected. Councillor Lawrence, you've got some neck. 10 years of austerity, shocking underinvestment, COVID layered on top of that, which has shown in the latest inquiry that the NHS was on its knees even before COVID happened. And you are commending some of your ideas to us and to the government. I'm afraid they won't be listened to. And actually, instead of rewriting history, you should listen to history. Investment is going into the local NHS. Investment is going into Medway Foundation Trust. And I'm very, very pleased to let Councillor Lammas know, with a bit of love shown from him tonight, perhaps it's St George's Day that's motivated him, that in fact Wes Streeting is coming here to open the James Williams Health Centre, and we'll be very proud to show him all of the great things that are going on in Medway. I am not pretending everything is all right, far from it. But if we don't show support, if we don't show expertise, if we don't get our adult social care teams working hard with Medway Hospital to change things, to make sure that we can discharge people safely, then we're not worth the salt, okay? It is our job to do that. It's not our job to stand carping on the sidelines. And as for the ICB, I don't speak for them. I've been a strong critic in the past when things have gone wrong. But there is a new leadership team. We've got a new continuity at the Health and Wellbeing Board with Dominic Cox, who has promised to be there, who immediately agreed to take up the issue of neurodiversity assessments, which we haven't had before, just as an example of the way that things are working. We've got to give these things a chance to work. And for everybody who is saying how terrible things is, remember, there are staff working in all of those services that you're talking about, including here, working hard every single day. And what they need to hear from you, because they hear it from us every day, is that we support them. We have employed 80 new staff in adult social care. We have given them a pay rise when you had them at 0 for 5 years before. We have restructured, and as I said, you've had an opportunity to comment on that, to discuss it, to give your ideas through scrutiny and through the council. We have made sure that the public get a chance to talk about what they want from adult social care with a new engagement programme. You're welcome to come to any of the meetings. It's interesting to hear what people will say. Things are getting better, and it is on us to make sure that they continue to get better and give things a chance.
Thank you, Councillor. Before we vote on the amendment, I go back to the proposer of the original motion, Councillor Perfect.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to everybody for their contributions. I think particularly, I think Councillor Lawrence and Councillor Joy are absolutely spot on. Councillor Lawrence both talking about the NHS system, but also Councillor Joy's conversation on leadership and the importance of it. And I absolutely agree. And look, I'm very pleased, Councillor Murray, to have brought Reform and Labour together. How lovely it is. One might call it a uni-party, but I wouldn't possibly want to comment. And look, I'm very pleased that Wes Streeting's coming down. At least he's spending more time now on the health brief rather than trying to go for the top job. And look, again, finally, I'm no longer going to be taking any lectures from those on the other side after this week's performance on Monday morning from the former Permanent Undersecretary at the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office about anything, actually, on the treatment of officials, because let me tell you, I think that performance showed you everything you need to know about your government and the way in which the regard that they have for senior officials. And I'm sure we'll see more about that as that one works through the Employment Tribunal. And just finally on for Councillor Murray, I mean, look, it took you 6 months to come up with a plan to deliver the reorganisation of NHS England when actually most people were left in limbo during that period. And of course, just in terms of Baroness Casey, we have no problem with the amendment, but in terms of Baroness Casey, it's yet another review, as I indicated, on after the initial plan that we believe was formed when you were in opposition was dropped. So I think we'll wait to see what that has to deliver. But we have no problem supporting the amendment. I'm very pleased to see that the Labour administration are committed to writing to their Secretary of State on these matters. Thank you.
Thank you, members. We now come to the vote on the amendment. Those in favour? The amendment is carried. That now becomes a substantive. Is there any other member who wishes to speak on that? No. Thank you. And is that agreed then, members? Thank you very much. Call upon Councillor Maple to propose the motion at item B.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clark. And this is a motion I wish we didn't have to have. I wish that we didn't move a motion in Medway tonight which starts by recognising the deaths, the murders of two much loved elected representatives, Joe Cox and Sir David Amos. Of course, in particular for us here with Southend, just over the estuary, known to many of us. And Joe Cox, many of you will know as a White Ribbon ambassador, Joe Cox was heavily involved in that campaign in her constituency. And in both those cases, they were carrying out the work that many of us do once a month, often on the first Saturday of the month. And we continue to do that because it's the right thing to do. But in both those cases, they paid the ultimate price for being an elected representative. So on the 10th anniversary, as we move towards that in June, of Joe Cox's murder, it's right that we as a council take a moment to pause and reflect. And I remember we had a scrutiny meeting of that 10 years ago, and we took a moment collectively to pause and reflect there. It is never acceptable to abuse and intimidate elected representatives, be that local councillors, police and crime commissioners, MPs, or indeed council officers. They're not elected members, but at no point should they be subject to abuse and intimidation. And as the motion shows, nearly 3 in 4 elected councillors have experienced abuse or intimidation in the last 12 months. That is 72% too many. And as Jo Cox said in her maiden speech, often quoted, the truth is that in politics, there is more in common which divides us. And that's true. You know, we may have fundamentally different views on a number of things, but the 59 people in this chamber want Medway to be a better place. I've got no doubt of that. I may disagree with lots of things that people say, but I know people are in this room because they want the place that we all call home to be better. That is fundamentally a good thing. Nobody should be subject to abuse and intimidation. It has no place in politics, whether that's at a national level, an international level, or indeed at a local level. So I'm really pleased that we'll see the Leader of the Opposition seconding this motion tonight. I'm really grateful for him doing so, and I'm confident we will see a unanimous vote for this. The legacy, particularly of Jo Cox, and you'll hear later on from Nina, Councillor Gurung, who's been on the Joe Cox programme, which again is, empowering people, not just in politics, but in life. So that legacy of both of them, both David Amos and Joe Cox, absolutely essential to building a better society, building a fairer society, building a more civil society. And our chaplain, one of my favourite Edwards, not my favourite Edward, as he knows, but one of my favourite Edwards, referenced the fact that I often say it's good to disagree agreeably. That's a good thing. That's a healthy thing. If we all agreed agreeably all the time, that would be a bit boring. So it's okay to have differences of views, and we can be robust, but there is a line. And from my perspective, I think the LGA national process of this, the Debate Not Hate campaign, has been an exemplar in making sure people from across the political spectrum have the tools and techniques to deal with this. We shouldn't have to, but it's important that we have those things in place, and we will continue to support them. And we have a briefing coming shortly for that important relationship we have with the police on the issue of Operation Ford. Again, something I wish didn't have to exist, but making sure there is the appropriate support for elected members and their families. So, Mayor Clark, I'm grateful that we will debate this tonight. I'm grateful for every contribution we'll hear in this debate. As I say, I wish it's something we didn't have to do, but I think we can send a message here. We can debate robustly. That is not a problem. We can disagree agreeably. That is good to do for our democracy. But ultimately, no elected representative should be in a position where they are abused or intimidated. And as many colleagues will know, earlier this year, myself and one of our MPs were in a situation where we were in court because someone had done exactly that. That should never happen here in Medway or any other part of our country. I move the motion. Thank you, Mayor Clark.
Thank you, and I will remember that scrutiny meeting in June 2016. Really. Is that seconded? Supported, rather?
Yes,
Councillor
thank you,
Perfect, you wish
Mr.
to
Mayor.
speak now or reserve?
Yes, I'll speak now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, as the leaders just referenced, pleased to second this and also associate myself and the opposition with all of the words that he's just expressed. Civility in public life is of the utmost importance to me and of the Conservative Party and indeed the Conservative group, and something that we often reflect on. All elected members must be able to do their work without the fear of threats, intimidation, abuse or violence, and all members of my group will know how frequently I talk about the importance of people taking care of themselves. Mr. Mayor, in this country, up until recently, we've always had civility, I think, at the heart of public life, and always taken the view that we should have respect for our politicians who serve their communities day in, day out. But particularly in these two cases that the leaders referenced, in the very sad loss of murder of Joe Cox and David Amos, coupled with the advent of social media, we've seen that this has become extremely strained. I see regularly abusive comments online of politicians in this very chamber, including myself and the leader, and threatening behaviour, which is often much worse for those that are female and those of ethnic minority background. And we must always call it out. Both Joe Cox and David Amos demonstrate the implication of hate when it is allowed to fester further. And across the world, we've seen it. Across the Atlantic, we saw the implications of incitement of similar behaviour on Capitol Hill a number of years ago. And while we must therefore always robustly challenge nor normalise that behaviour ever. And in supporting this motion, I will also remind all members in this chamber of the same. As recently I've seen some comments that sometimes borderline are abusive. And actually, we need to ensure that we're working in this chamber and always remembering that whilst, as the leader says, we can debate robustly, we must never become personal. I'm pleased to second the motion, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Grung, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Joe Cox MP lived by the mantra that we have far more in common than that which divides us. She was committed to equality and social justice and promoting a fairer, kinder and more tolerant world where communities are strengthened by choosing dialogue and understanding and unity over division and hatred. She believed in treating one another with respect and civility, even when we disagree. Her enduring legacy is one of compassionate leadership, community service, supporting those most vulnerable, and her tireless work to promote social cohesion, serving as a beacon for all of us in public roles. Joe's tragic murder and that of Sir David Amos's later on, also in the line of duty while being accessible to the public, remain watershed moments in British democracy, as they were shocking reminders to the nation about the dangers of political violence and extremism, and to reflect on the importance of civility rather than hateful, divisive rhetoric, so that public service remains inclusive and safe. As we all know, never has this been more important and relevant than now. In this chamber, as elected representatives, we engage in robust debates on matters that are important to our areas and constituents, but we would not want any harm of any kind on any elected member or officers, regardless of where we stand on the political spectrum. Would we agree? I also ask every elected member in this chamber, would you agree that as ethical public servants, our primary role is to unite communities and address shared challenges rather than create division and exploit them? Will we commit to tackle hate speech and promote civil debate? Will we commit to working together to tackle intimidation towards women and girls, including women in public life? Thank you. Jo Cox she also believed in women empowerment and the importance of women representation in leadership roles. I'm extremely proud that here in Medway, in this group, we have equal representation of women in leadership roles as deputy leader, cabinet members, various important committee chairs and vice chairs, as well as valuable group members. This is also achieved through the Labour Party and Medway Labour valuing the important role that women can play in solving society's complex needs and challenges across all sectors. I'm also a proud Cohort 7 graduate of the Jo Cox Women in Leadership Programme run by the Labour Women's Network, who mentor hundreds of women from all backgrounds to take on leadership roles. It is, after all, not just about women in leadership here and now, but about inspiring a whole new generation of women and girls in the future too. I would like to urge all parties, organisations and teams to reflect,
Thank
learn.
you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Amos, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually knew Sir David Amos. I used to work for South Essex MPs for a number of years, and Sir David was one of them. And he was an absolutely incredible public servant who was dedicated unbelievably to the work that he committed, and was also supremely kind and supremely funny. I remember quite distinctly one occasion where there was a Thames Clipper boat trip along the Thames as part of a lobby from Tilbury Port to explain how they would take additional container ships there and help boost the import trade for London. And I think it was at the end of a term, so people had some time, and different MPs asked the captain to make sure they included their constituency along this journey around the Thames. So David grew very frustrated to learn that his place was not actually included on this trip. And it was explained by the captain that is because Thames Clippers are not actually seaworthy for the sea, they're only seaworthy for the river. But Sir David did not accept that. And what happened was a 3-hour boat trip in extreme hazardous conditions with people being sick over the side of the boat, also that David could get to see his pier. And we were convinced it was a pointless trip, except when we got there and he called out, someone called back, "Oi, David, is that you? Thank you for helping my mum." And I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe that the chances of that happening were unbelievable. I went to the area after his passing, and to this day there are many, many memorials of the impact of the work that he had. He absolutely was committed to the idea of working cross-party whenever possible, but also making sure that you make promises that you keep in political life. He took that as very important as well. So in loving memory of Sir David, very happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Howcroft-Scott, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and lovely to see you earlier today as well. I really think we should never forget Jo Cox. Her murder happened while she was serving us and democracy. Nor should we forget David Amos, who was killed serving his constituents. These tragedies shook our nation and indeed the world, and should be a reminder and remain a warning to us all that hatred and extremists is not acceptable. But this motion is not about remembrance, it's about responsibility. It's about seeing clearly that intimidation and threats towards elected members of staff, candidates, have no place in our democratic society, whether in Parliament, this chamber, this council chamber, online or on the doorstep. Councillors of all parties know what it is to face anger and sometimes personal abuse simply for trying to serve the community you're elected to represent is wrong and discourages good people in our community from stepping forward and putting their head above the parapet. If decent people are driven away from democracy, democracy is indeed weakened. I also welcome the commitment to encourage community events that bring people together, because civility is not a weakness, respect is not a surrender. Listening to one another, even when we disagree strongly, is the very foundation of our democracy. We do not have to agree always in this chamber. Debate should be passionate, it should be robust, and it must be decent. We can challenge ideas without attacking people. So tonight, let us not forget and let us honour Jo Cox, not just with words, but with actions. Let us choose respect over abuse, unity over division, and service over everything else. I'm pleased to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no other member, so I'll go back to Councillor Maple.
Thank you very much indeed, Mayor Clark, and thanks to everybody across the chamber for their good words. It's important to be heard on this particular motion. I'll say a couple of things in closing. Firstly, both of these individuals that we've spoken about tonight, which are named in the first sentence of this motion, there are links back to Medway. So again, Jo Cox in particular was a very strong advocate for the White Ribbon campaign. We are a White Ribbon Council. And certainly Sir David Amos was an absolute stalwart supporter of the Music Man project, which many people will know here in Medway. So in both those cases, these two individuals, not just great elected representatives, but also they've got their links into Medway as well. So it's important that we recognise those two individuals, and I thank all of those who have made comments about the two individuals. But ultimately, as others have said, this is about looking forward as well and ensuring that this council and its successor council, whatever that looks like, starts with the ethos of disagreeing agreeably. And of course, it's not just us 59 in this chamber, although that's really important. It's about saying that to the public at large. And people might say, well, do we actually need this? Why are we moving this? So today, Mayor Clark, you and I and a handful of other councillors, we were outside Gunwolf, raising the St George's flag. And a Medway resident has said, I wish you were raising something for hanging councillors instead. That's today. That's 10 hours ago. That's in our community. Now, they may go, well, I didn't really mean it, but absolutely, that kind of language is unacceptable, You can challenge me personally as a council leader, you can challenge any one of the 59 of us, but to use language like that is not acceptable. So I say very clearly, we will call you out, all of you, whoever you are, for using unacceptable, aggressive, intimidatory language. It's not appropriate to any councillor in this chamber to suffer that. And actually, where there have been examples of that, we do see cross-party support, practical support sometimes. We've seen that over the years. So I'm really grateful that we've had this opportunity today to reflect and remember two powerful parliamentarians, both of whom were taken too soon from us. And we sent a strong, united message to say we believe in debate, not hate. Thank you, Mayor Clark.
Thank you. Is that agreed, members? Thank you. Come now to agenda item 8, the Leaders' Report. We have 30 minutes to receive and debate this report. May I call on the leader to present?
Thank you very much indeed, Mayor Clark. And again, well done to you and Councillor Spring for your excellent service. We'll say more of that and your council. Since we last met as a council, local government reorganisation has continued to move at a pace. I was really pleased, and thanks to some Cabinet colleagues who supported some of these sessions, we had individual sectoral sessions with colleagues across Medway, the housing sector, the voluntary sector, which was hosted by MVA, our faith groups, our businesses, our cultural and leisure sector, all of whom had interesting questions, often not about their sector, but about what this will mean to the place of Medway. So really pleased to give that time and answer those questions. Again, if there are individuals who have got questions on what this might look like, how this might impact on them, I'd always encourage you to email lgr@medway.gov.uk. And of course, we've got Medway Matters Live coming up in just a couple of weeks. I know there'll be questions on it there as well. We wait with interest to see the decision that will come from government. And of course, we have seen other decisions since we last met as a council as well. And I noted with interest, and I'm sure every political group here would be able to point at those decisions and go, well, this means definitely our decision is going to be right. I'll do that too. I think I have confidence that the government will make the right decisions. And I've said publicly, both when I was being held to account of business support, but also at Cabinet, whatever the outcome, this council will not legally challenge it. It is disappointing to hear that that is likely to be the case in Essex. That's a matter for them. We will not spend taxpayers' money on challenging a process which has been fair throughout. The decision ultimately will sit with the Secretary of State. We've also been pleased to be able to put forward, along with 13 other councils, a view on a foundation strategic authority. We're invited to put that forward. 12 colleagues and ourselves have sent a strong collaborative message, and I respect the reason why the 13th Council, Kent County Council, has chosen not to at this stage. I hope when that decision is made, they will come very quickly back to the table, and that is the early indications that we have on that so far. We don't have a timetable for that yet, but I'm very excited to see how that will happen as we move forward. The local plan, we've received our initial feedback, as every council does when they're going through this process for the avoidance of doubt. We continue to prepare for that critical inspection, recognising we do not want to be in a place. It is a binary choice. The new unitary authority for North Kent will either inherit a new local plan or a plan from 2003. I know which one I want to see, and if anybody wants to stop us losing planning appeals, I know which one they would want to see as well. As I often say, I'm incredibly proud to be Medway, and I want to give you some of the many, many reasons why that's the case tonight. I want to start with meningitis B. Since we last met, of course, we've seen that impact on our community across our region, obviously much more focused in Canterbury, but I want to thank in particular Dr. David Whiting and of course the team at the James Williams Healthy Living Centre who stepped up, and we were able to give an antibiotics programme to people who were coming to Medway to receive that. I spoke to people, I visited them, and they were receiving a great service, and that meant there was some pressure taken off of Canterbury as well. So thank you to everybody, and again I would remind those who have had their first vaccination to get your second vaccination done as well. We've launched our adult social care strategy. We've launched the Crisis and Resilience Fund. We have launched, once again, more information on the Medway Lottery. If you aren't a member of the Medway Lottery, I'd encourage you to do so. It is helping some of our fantastic voluntary sector organisations. There'll be a briefing note coming out shortly on that, but I'd encourage people to get involved. And we're already in conversations as to what that might look like post-LGR. We, of course, have allocated more than £1 million for the Who Community Village Hall, I look forward to that opening in due course. It will be holding many amazing events there, I'm sure. Medway has welcomed the Slovakian ambassador. It was great to welcome him here. He came to the council as well as visiting other key institutions in Medway. We held a number of iftars across Medway. I was really pleased in particular to be at the Dialogue Society iftar at Rochester Cathedral. It was a great event. We've had the Allotments Federation AGM, and of course, one of the many services which are now back being managed directly by Medway Council. And I have to say at the Allotments Federation, that was warmly received from residents there who value their allotments a lot. We've had the MVA Awards hosted last night by the brilliant Councillor Hamadishe, much better than last year's host, whoever he was. We've got the Pride in Medway Awards tomorrow. If anyone's attending, do make sure you take a packet of tissues. It is the most emotional night we have every year. It's amazing. We've had a Chinese New Year parade. We've had a Nepalese New Year event happening in Chatham. We've held another successful IAG fair in the Pentagon with hundreds and hundreds of young people getting advice, information and guidance, and more employers than ever before coming to be part of that, want to be part of the conversation we're having here. It's been the first anniversary of the Wigmore and Parkwood Armed Forces Breakfast Club, and I want to place on record my thanks to the team there, and indeed place on record my thanks to Councillor Chrissy Stamp. This will be her last council meeting as our Armed Forces champion. She has done a tremendous job, and her work as a veteran is respected by all those she comes into contact with. So my big thanks to Councillor Chrissy Stamp. We've launched the Medway Together Fund. That's an incredible opportunity for organisations to step up and make a difference in communities across Medway. We've launched the Cossington Park Community Tree Nursery. It was great to be there with the Deputy Leader and a lovely green ribbon. It was very... Deputy Leader, I've promoted you now, sorry, the real Deputy Leader. And sorry, the Deputy Leader over there. Deputy Mayor. It was great to be there, and it was a really great community event again. Thanks to Councillor Curry for his leadership in that issue. We've had the Women and Homelessness Project launched by AMA, our great friends there. I was pleased yesterday, and I was great to be accompanied by both the Chief Executive and our Director of Place to chair the second annual Region of Kent MPs and Council Leaders session at the Houses of Parliament. Really wide-ranging conversation, an awful lot of consensus on the big issues from public transport to international rail to the important progress we've made with Visit Kent and Growing Kent. We've flown the St George's flag. We've flown the Commonwealth Day flag. We have submitted as a partner, but led actually by the Dockyard and Nucleus Arts, the Town of Culture bid for Chatham. I'm excited to see where we go with that. As I mentioned a moment ago, we've seen a number of staff transfer from Medway North into Medway Council service. We've today launched the Medway Youth Horizons Rotary project. Really great afternoon, so many good ideas in that room which will make a big difference to our young people. We've had important prevent conferences and briefings both here in Medway and in Maidstone. I want to thank Councillor Patterson for his important work in that area. We've welcomed back the Rochester Art Fair, bringing people from across the country, proactively choosing to come to Medway to show off their amazing talents and arts. We welcomed on Easter Sunday the Turn to Starboard project, which is phenomenal. If you're not following them on social media, make sure you do that. That is a brilliant, massive ship, couple of ships, but predominantly being run by volunteers and veterans, which is an incredible thing to see. And if all of that wasn't enough proud to be Medway, we've actually got £60 million to be proud to be Medway. I'm incredibly pleased as council leader, and I want to place on record a huge thank you to our 3 MPs and to Councillor Marhill, who politically will lead this. The Pride in Place programme will make such a difference to communities, not just the directly funded areas, but wider, further beyond, no doubt about that. Of course, we already had £1.5 million, and I've encouraged lots of people. I know we're getting shopfront grant requests in. Get those in soon, because the money is going to go out the door quickly. Lots of people want to be part of that. But the Pride in Place programme, if you think about, for me, who knows their communities better than the people who live in those communities? So this is not the council, this is not the MP, although both of those will be key stakeholders. These are the residents of Medway. We won power in 2023. to give away power. And now we're giving away power with £20 million for Chatham, £20 million for Gillingham, £20 million for Strood. I'm so excited to see how that project runs. I trust the people of Medway. I want them to get on and do some amazing things. And I want to thank particularly Councillor Marhill, but it will be a cross-cabinet situation. If they want more green spaces, if they want more health provision, more safer streets, better quality housing, if they want, education being improved, if they want more cultural opportunities, our cabinet is ready to build pride in Medway. And as council leader, I couldn't be more proud of this place. Thank you, Mayor Clark.
Thank you. Councillor Perfect, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I nearly fell off my chair then when the leader said that he was thought that people had faith in the LGR process. I mean, ask any of those LGR DPP areas that suddenly had elections forced on them after a failed legal defence by the government. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. I mean, the leader of the council, faith in LGR, talking about not wanting to challenge the process. But I think, as our Shadow Secretary of State has been very clear, it's been a complete mess, it's been a complete shambles. We now found out that we're not going to get a mayor. We found out in the process at the same time, we don't know whether it's 500,000, we don't know whether it's 300,000, we don't now know whether Medway might just continue as it is. I mean, I'm very sorry, but I think the leader's completely misjudged on that. And of course, we've still got to wait to see whether or not this Prime Minister stays in office or not. I mean, it's just like the government. It's the end of another year of chaos under the leadership of the Medway Labour and Cooperative Group of this council. And you think it was all sunshine and rainbows, but I think it's all careering off course. And don't just take my word for it. Take two members of your group. Take your former chair of the planning committee. Take your former Councillor Shocko, who came back after a fight at your Christmas party, who both delivered damning representations as part of your local plan consultation, which have now been picked up by your own government's planning inspectorate, concerns raised that other opposition parties have on a range of matters, and now the inspector's thrown off your promises that this would be passed by the end of the year, and we're still awaiting your response to that letter. We've had another year of a budget with holes right through it, borrowing once again for the third year to fund day-to-day spending, whilst further money is borrowed for unnecessary projects, care homes, business cases for politically motivated LGR plans at the cost of £105,000 for the taxpayer, all made worse by their government shortchanging us by £8 million. And of course, the IMF recently downgrading Britain's economic forecast for 2026 before we even get to the war in the Middle East. And in finishing, I'm just going to talk about the mess over the last week. If you want any example of the implications of Labour in government and Labour in local government, look at that select committee on Monday. A Prime Minister on his knees, appointing Peter Mandelson to be ambassador to Washington. And I'm still yet to hear from the leader of the council his views on this. When he was leader of the opposition, he used to stand here quite regularly offering comments on government. We still haven't had him condemning that appointment. We haven't had, as a proud trade union official, anything from him in terms of his views on those comments from Ollie Robbins and the FDA earlier in the week. He's one of the most senior local government figures in the Labour Party, and he hasn't commented on this in this chamber. If he wants to do that in a moment, I look forward to it. But, Mr Mayor, what does it show? It shows an administration running out of time, cranking up the borrowing for their pet legacy projects, supporting a government on the constant near brink of collapse. They can talk over me, but it's all coming. And with those interventions in the local plan discussion becoming so key, from his nominee to be chair of the planning committee, Mr Mayor, Councillor Hubbard, it shows a disconnected Labour group without a long-term plan for Medway's future. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Going to call on Councillor Croser, please.
And thank you, Leader, for your report. Mr Mayor, with regard to the local plan, we are not surprised by the local plan inspector's initial queries letter received just a month ago. While our initial queries letter is an initial queries response is standard, the tone and depth of this letter are troubling. The inspectors have been quite explicit in their scepticism regarding the soundness of the plan, and like the independent group, are questioning whether the massive housing allocation for the Hoo Peninsula, representing roughly 30% of our total target, are truly supported by deliverable infrastructure. We have all known, Mr Mayor, since the business case study for the HIF project, that the peninsula is not remotely sustainable for this scale of proposed development. Mr Mayor, with local government reorganisation looming, we are entering a precarious shadowing period, leaving little time before Medway Council ceases to exist. Does the leader therefore share our view that without a reallocation of housing planned for the environmentally sensitive peninsula, to sustainable urban brownfield sites, this plan is extremely likely to be found unsound, leaving this council and our residents completely exposed to predatory development. Mr. Mayor, we must also address the deeply concerning news regarding the withdrawal of funding from our local Who Cares. This organisation was originally established with council support to provide a lifeline to our elderly and vulnerable residents. They provide services that statutory provision often misses, like medical transport, befriending and dementia respite. I understand from Who Cares that the council has cited uneven fairness as a reason for ceasing payments. However, Who Cares has been working proactively towards financial self-sufficiency through its enterprise Peninsula Care. While the National Lottery has recognised this vision with an eight-year funding commitment, the council has chosen this exact moment to cease funding. Not having been consulted as ward councillors, we have written to you, Leader, and have also contacted the Assistant Director of Adult Social Care for a formal explanation. But the clock is ticking for our residents. Can the Leader provide an assurance today that he will intervene, as we have suggested, and meet together with ward councillors and the CEO of Who Cares to find a bridge through this transition, ensuring that some of our most isolated residents aren't left without medical transport and vital support due to a rigid interpretation of procurement fairness. Mr. Mayor, I was glad to hear that you've given £1 million to the Who Village Hall project. I'd just like to say that when High Halstead built its Village Hall under
Councillor
the Tories,
Croser,
there
thank
was
you.
no money available.
Thank you. Councillor Finch, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Listening to the Leader's report, residents could be forgiven for thinking everything is under control. But outside this chamber, people see something very different. They see pressure on services, frustration with politics, and an administration increasingly focused on managing appearances rather than delivering for the public. And this isn't just a Medway issue, it's happening across the country. On May the 7th, millions of people will go to the polls in local elections. They won't be voting for more of the same, they'll be voting for change. Because what people are fed up with is exactly what we see here. On one side, a Conservative group whose big idea is to write a strongly worded letter to the Secretary of State. Residents don't want letters, they want action. And on the other, a Labour administration that has spent and borrowed its way into a corner, maxing out the council's finances and now reaching for yet more borrowing, pushing the burden further and further down the line, not just onto our children or even our grandchildren, but generations beyond that. That's the real legacy being created here. So when residents look at councils across the country, they're not just judging what's being said, they're judging what's being done. And too often, what they see is the same pattern. Inaction from one side and unsustainable spending from the other. Labour and Conservatives have completely broken Britain. That's why people are turning away from them. They want something different, something more grounded, something that actually reflects their priorities. And that's what we're here to represent. Residents aren't asking for more politics, they're asking for results. And right now, they're not getting them.
Thank you. Councillor Mahale, please.
Oh, there we go. Not sure which mic was on first. Thank you, Vince, for covering everything that is underway in Medway. I wanted to just tap into what's happening with the Pride in Place programme. I know everyone's sort of excited about what we can get underway, but I think we would really like to focus on how this differs from previous grants or previous pots of funding, and how it marks a real difference from approach from the central government here, rather than sort of trying to fight for bits of funding that everyone else in the country is all fighting for and putting bids against and bidding against each other and bidding up the cost. What we have here is a fund that's actually based on need, And what makes it different is that this is a long-term plan. So this is a long-term funding that's actually going to provide communities with some certainty and security over the funding over 10 years. So it's not looking at the electoral cycle as the main driver. It's looking at a 10-year funding cycle, which is a really refreshing change. The other thing that it touches on is that it's flexible, so it will allow communities themselves to spend their funding on projects that matter most to them in ways that work for them. So this really is doing with the communities, not for the communities or at the communities. The other thing that is that this is community-led, so this is putting local people at the heart of the decision-making process here. So working with residents, able to have their say on the future for their neighbourhood, which really marks a difference from how funding has been sort of fought for before. And ultimately what this will do is provide an empowering a fund that will be supportive, that will empower people to build the skills and confidence that they need to deliver that change in their communities. And what I mean by that is the panels that will form from the communities, as well as being supported by the council, will actually take members from the community on the board. So they will be building those skills to support that fund and the work that's going to be carried out. So that marks a real difference in approach than that we've had in the past, couple of decades at the very least, in terms of how funding is being handed out. And the clue is in the name. It's about pride in place. And lastly, with the last 30 seconds remaining, I would like to touch on how the social regeneration program that started with SPF funding and the award-winning team behind that has now got the funds allocated with the Medway Together Fund. If I had my way, I wanted to call it the Forward Together Fund, but we got the Together bit in that. I think it was a bit too much on the nose if it was called Forward Together. So the Medway Together Fund will really allow us to work on the successful work on the projects from years 1 to 4 and build on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have time for one more member before we go back to the leader. Councillor Hackwell, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to talk about a few things in the Leaders' Report. The pride in place is great news for Medway. It's a shame it's not applicable to the whole of Medway, especially Rainham, where I live. It's down to specific areas, so there's going to be some places that won't be able to get much funding. I'd like to talk about the potentially becoming a strategic foundational authority and the local plan. We all know that devolution of powers is a good thing, as we have shown for nearly 30 years of being a unitary authority. So becoming a strategic foundational authority would give us more control over things like planning, transport, perhaps even getting the Eurostar to stop somewhere in Kent again, adult education, greater powers over revenue as well. So I think it's a good thing, and I do agree with it. But with this new power comes a sobering responsibility. A foundation is only as strong as what's built upon it. It's not and currently the cornerstone of our future is the Medway local plan. It's not a solid block of granite. It's looking increasingly like a shifting sand. The inspector's recent questions, although, have laid bare the cracks. Even though the leader stated that this is normal to get questions from the inspector, I think that these questions were far more reaching than we were expecting. They're actually asking the same questions the community have shouted for months. Why is the evidence for Green Belt release so thin? What was the vital infrastructure data withheld until after the public consultation ended? And crucially, how can this plan claim to guide us to 2041, or maybe even 2042 now, since we've got the letter, when it fails to meet the basic legal tests of soundness today? It's your own planning document, a document Labour forced through despite objections from us, the opposition, other groups in this chamber, and the public. There's so many questions and we have so many questions from the inspectors. The local plan is warning us that the current path leads to overdevelopment without the promised infrastructure. As we potentially transition into an FSA, we are supposed to be proving that we are ready for devolution. We are meant to be aligning our spatial strategies with our neighbours to drive growth. Yet how can we have a strategic partnership in Kent and Medway when we cannot even produce a legally compliant plan for our own authority? We are potentially being offered the keys to a kingdom of devolution, but our current leadership is stumbling at the threshold. We risk becoming a foundation that collapses before the first floor is even built. We do not need a plan that merely checks boxes for the Secretary of State. We need a plan that reflects the strategic authority we claim we want to be. I call on the administration to stop defensive posturing, listen to the opposition, that is your own failing of the local plan, go back to the drawing board, have further consultations with the public and protect our green belt. Build a foundation for Medway that is based on transparency and sound evidence, not just political expediency. Medway deserves a foundation built to last. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Come back to Councillor Maple. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clark. Thank you to everybody for their contributions, some of which I agreed with, some of which I didn't. I'll leave the US ambassador question till last, I think. I'm conscious I've got 2 extra minutes, I won't use them, promise. So we want a local plan. It is perfectly normal, and I don't want to give a spoiler alert to a question I'm going to get later on, to receive feedback from the inspectors in this process in a normal way. So I'm confident we're moving forward appropriately. You're right to say, Councillor Hackwell, that there'll be one of 2 choices when the new, not even the Foundation Strategic Authority, will look at either a plan from 2003, because the previous administration failed repeatedly to get a local plan through, even withdrawing it from a council meeting. I remember that well, without a single conversation with me as leader of the opposition, it has to be said, unlike the meeting we have regularly across party, because that's the right thing to do. And of course, I feel your pain, Councillor Hackwell. You know, if only this administration had put money in the budget for Rainham and the opposition had proposed to take it out. Oh, wait, that's exactly what happened. You proposed to take money out for Rainham, but thanks to this team, we defended that because we believe in one Medway. On who cares, you will receive a letter tomorrow, but I'll give a brief overview to say it's important to note the council has never held a contract or directly commissioned services with Who Cares. But I will take more than my 3 minutes to go through all of that. The letter will be coming tomorrow, and we have a meeting tomorrow, so I'm happy to discuss it in more detail there. I want to thank Councillor Marhill for his great work on both Pride in Place, but also the Medway Together Fund, and indeed the work that's still ongoing with UK Shared Prosperity Fund, important to our community. And to answer the leader of the opposition directly, the people of this country will be really pleased to know that I'm not Prime Minister, but I have no faith and confidence in Peter Mandelson. I wouldn't hire him to cook me some toast, let alone be our ambassador in another country. So I want Keir Starmer to be our Prime Minister, but it doesn't mean he's infallible. He made a mistake. He said that himself. And I'm pleased that he recognises that. In the same way that, as I've always said from day number 1, we will get on. Will we be perfect? No, because we're humans. And in that case, I think the Prime Minister made a mistake, and he has accepted that in Parliament and elsewhere. But let's get back to the fact that actually we're not here to discuss the US ambassador. We're here to discuss the brilliant job that this administration is doing every single day for the people of Medway. Thank you, Mayor Clark.
Thank you, members. Moving now to members' questions. We will deal with the 5 questions listed on the agenda from members of the council. We have 20 minutes for this item. A reminder, answers to questions must not exceed 3 minutes in length. Councillor Maritime, please may I have your question?
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Like many colleagues, I was surprised and shocked at comments before the budget meeting and at the scrutiny meetings before it from some councillors that said Medway council staff should not receive a cost of living increase. People who are our neighbours, our family, our friends and our constituents. Therefore, can I ask the portfolio holder to provide the number of Medway council staff who reside in Medway and in doing so break that data down to ward level numbers?
Councillor Van Dyke, would you please respond?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Maritime. Yeah, it's working now. Based on the workforce snapshot as of 10th of April 2026, Medway Council employs 3,313 staff, of which 65.3% reside within Medway. This data excludes agency workers, but does include casual and relief staff. The remaining 34.7% live outside of the Medway area. And the ward level data shows that staff living in Medway are distributed over all wards, with higher numbers in wards such as Watling, Rainham North, Rainham South East and Strood North and Finsbury, which reflects population patterns across the authority. A percentage breakdown for each ward is now being emailed to all members, and a limited number of hard copies are now being handed out as appropriate.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Turpin, please may I have your question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can I add further text to my question, or do I have to read what I've submitted? I assume I have to read what I've submitted. Further to the portfolio holder for community safety, highways and enforcement's comments that potholes is something that elected members should keep well out of, can the leader of the council advise members of any other areas that elected members, including his own backbenchers, should keep well out of? Thank you.
Councillor Patterson, do you have a point of personal explanation?
I'm grateful for the advice from Democratic Services on the best way to challenge this rather dishonest attempt to ask a question. What I want to do is talk about the fact that Councillor Turpin has chosen 11 words to quote in her question. 11 words, conveniently, which fail to convey the entirety of the paragraph, which totals 79 words. I don't think that those words were excised from the question accidentally, because, in fact, it seems quite deliberate, because she has then chosen to interpret the meaning of those words in her own way, change the subject of the sentence. But inconveniently for Councillor Turpin, the words were spoken on a podcast, and so everyone can hear them as they were spoken right now and come to their own conclusion about the dishonesty of this question.
Sorry, could you just pause a moment, please, Councillor Patterson? Is that appropriately? I'm sorry, I will not permit that to be played. Is your point of personal explanation that the comments are out of context?
Not happy for me to play them. I can assure you that they are verbatim from the radio broadcast. Road prioritisation does not happen on my whim.
Another explanation. Thank you. Okay, thank you, members. I will take advice from the monitoring officer. The point of personal explanation was that this was out of context. Does that need to be further clarified? How? Or do we take that as... What's your view? So the monitoring officer is saying it can be clarified. Please read the rest of your comment then.
Sorry that that's inconvenient for Councillor Perfect as well. Road prioritisation does not happen on my whim, on my say-so as an elected member. I think this is something that elected members should keep well out of the decision-making process on. And so the prioritisation is based on professional assessments, inspections, the data that we are gathering from the cameras on the front of bin lorries, and actually making sure that we are doing it where it's needed, not where those who shout loudest live. Not the meaning that has been put on the order paper tonight, a completely different meaning, a completely different subject to the sentence.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson, for that. Councillor Maple, would you please respond?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the question, and thank you very much for the point of personal clarification. My advice for all councillors for things they should keep well out of is selectively using parts of a quote. Thank you, Mayor Clark.
Thank you. Councillor Spalding is not present tonight, so he will receive a written response to his question. Councillor Sands, please may I have your question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As published.
Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Councillor Sands, for your question about an issue that I know you've taken a huge amount of interest in over the years and indeed have had personal discussions with me. There are 3 practices in the Hoo Peninsula, as you know, St Werburgh Medical Practice, the Elms Medical Centre and High Parks Medical Practice, with a combined GP workforce. It should be noted that not all care needs be provided by a GP, and practices recruit a mixture of trained health professionals to best meet the needs of their patients. These broader, multidisciplinary teams include roles such as advanced practitioners, pharmacists, and other clinicians, so the practice can then offer broader, more timely, and often more effective care for the population, as well as increasing capacity for GPs to see more complex cases. In April 2026, the practices on Hoo Peninsula have 20 GPs and 1 locum, equating to 11.82 full-time equivalent GPs, and 33 allied health professionals, equating to 29.7 full-time equivalents. In terms of future capacity, the Council's Infrastructure Delivery Plan 2025 details that a new primary and community health facility will be required to respond to growth in the local plan. NHS Kent and Medway recognises the impact that under-doctoring is having on primary care and has commissioned, as we were told at the Health and Wellbeing Board last week, the National Association of Primary Care to do an independent review into the particular issues in Kent and Medway, and they'll share details of their conclusions and the ICB's action plan as soon as possible. The planning team has regular governance meetings, and I've attended these, with the ICB regarding Section 106 requirements and the spend to mitigate and address the pressures relating to specific development proposals. In addition, throughout the local plan process, the planning and public health teams have engaged with the NHS and ICB regarding the emerging spatial strategy and the health requirements relating to that. This is reflected in the relevant policies in the draft plan and the associated infrastructure delivery and developer contributions guide. So I hope that gives you some reassurance, Councillor Sands, that we are being careful about the health needs of the population on the peninsula now and in the future. And I'm always pleased to hear your comments and ideas as we take the plan forward and start developing health provision there.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce, please may I have your question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Inspector's initial queries letter dated 27th of March for the local plan examination asks the Council to clarify which submission documents were not available at the Regulation 19 consultation and how that issue will be addressed, and also notes that further consultation may be necessary where new evidence or other documents are submitted on which interested parties have not had the opportunity to comment. In light of paragraph 16 and 31 of the letter, will the Leader of the Council now commit that any new document or any materially amended document that was not part of the Regulation 19 consultation will be subject to public consultation before the examination proceeds to hearings? Thank you.
Councillor Maple.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, and thank you for your question, Councillor Pearce. As you rightly advise, the Council has received an initial response from our planning inspectors appointed by the Planning Inspectorate in relation to our submission of the draft of the local plan. This local plan, of course, as I mentioned earlier, more than 20 years out of date, so it's important that we have made that initial submission. This is, for the avoidance of doubt, completely common with local plans submitted. The Council has until the 27th of April to provide an initial response to the inspectors and will, of course, be complying with that deadline. The response will respond to the questions raised, provide clarification where necessary, and will confirm the further steps that will be taken. This will include proposals for further consultation and a time frame for that. The inspectors will be invited to comment on all steps proposed within the letter, including the consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Agenda item 10, the annual overview and scrutiny report. Councillor Tejan, would you like to make a proposal?
Mr. Mayor, it's a real privilege to present the first annual overview and scrutiny report this evening. Overview and scrutiny is a cornerstone of our local democratic process and system. Its purpose is simple but essential: to provide constructive challenge, to strengthen transparency, and to ensure that the decisions taken on behalf of Medway are robust evidence-based and firmly rooted in the needs of our residents. This report makes one thing very clear, Mr. Mayor. Scrutiny in Medway is not a passive process. It is active, engaged, and genuinely impactful. Over the past year, our 4 overview and scrutiny committees have examined a wide range of issues that matters to Medway. We have looked closely at service performance, policy development, budget pressures, transformation programs, and the work of our partners. Committees have reviewed decisions before they are taken, called in matters of concern, and made recommendations that have strengthened outcomes and improved accountability. Crucially, Mr. Mayor, scrutiny has not reacted to decisions, but has helped shape them. Through pre-decision scrutiny, task and finish work, and ongoing monitoring, members have supported better policy development and ensure that risk and unintended consequences are explored early and openly and thoroughly. The report also highlights something I believe is one of scrutiny's greatest strengths: its collaborative, cross-party nature. Chairs and members from across the political spectrum have worked constructively together, focused not on point scoring, but on improving services for residents. That spirit of cooperation is something we should value and protect. I want to thank Councillor Field, Harcourt-Scott, and MacDonald for working with Democratic Services to produce this report. It reflects not only the work of the past year, but also the challenges ahead, particularly the significant implication of local government reorganization. And I want to place on record our collective thanks to Democratic Services. Their professionalism, preparation, and support underpin the effectiveness of scrutiny, from agenda management to research to advice during meetings and follow-up actions. That work enables members to focus on evidence, challenge outcome. I also want to thank all scrutiny members for the time, expertise, and commitment they bring, often dealing with complex issues in considerable depth. As members will recall, the Council previously agreed to move away from scrutiny updates at every ordinary Council meeting and instead adopt this annual reporting format in line with many other authorities. It is worth remembering why scrutiny exists at all. It was introduced 25 years ago to ensure that councillors outside cabinet hold decision-making to account. The report set out many highlights from the past year. My fellow chairs will speak shortly about the committee's work, but I want to mention 2 examples from Business Support and Digital Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Last August, we undertook pre-decision scrutiny of the procurement strategy, and our recommendation to prioritize local supply was accepted by Cabinet. And in September, Cabinet decision on local government reorganization were called in to our committee. And while that committee ultimately took no further action, the discussion was robust, constructive, valuable, involving members and leaders and senior officers. Only last week, at our informal meeting, we discussed the role of the scrutiny must play at reorganization progress. I look forward to our committees being fully engaged in the months ahead. In closing, if members have not yet read the report, I encourage you to do so. It reflects a year of hard work and set the tone for the challenges to come. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. As set out in the report, all 4 overview and scrutiny chairmen are permitted to speak for up to 5 minutes each. I will first ask Councillor MacDonald to support the recommendation and speak for up to 5 minutes. I will then invite Councillors Field and Councillor Howcroft-Scott to speak before opening this up for debate. Any other members will have up to 3 minutes to speak as per usual. Is it supported, Councillor MacDonald?
Supported. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm proud to second this annual Overview and Scrutiny report as Chair of the Health and Adult Social Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee. As mentioned, overview and scrutiny is the engine room of this council. It is not always glamorous, but it is absolutely essential. It is where decisions are properly tested, where performance is challenged, where difficult questions are asked, and where cabinet members, senior officers, and external partners like the NHS are held to account on behalf of the people of Medway. As chair of HASC, I want to briefly reflect on the work we have done over the last year. Health scrutiny is an important responsibility this council holds. It means examining services that people rely on at the most difficult moments of their lives, when they are ill, when a loved one is in hospital, when mental health support is needed, or when an elderly parent requires care and dignity. This year, the committee has dealt with significant challenges across both health and adult social care. We have looked closely at pressures within Medway Maritime Hospital, particularly the urgent and emergency care, and discharge delays and complaints handling, and the wider patient experience. We have questioned NHS leaders on their performance, their leadership, and the confidence residents should have in the services they depend on. And we have challenged decisions around mental health provision, community health contracts, and the wider transformation of services across Kent and Medway. Because changes of that scale must be transparent and must work for the local people, not just on paper, Mr. Mayor. Pharmacy access in Rainham was also a concern. Residents were clear that provision was not meeting need, and the committee made sure that issue was not ignored, pushing for a wider change where national regulations were clearly part of the problem. Rising demand, workforce challenges, financial strain, and increasing complexity of care all place enormous pressure on the system. But behind every report is a person, Mr. Mayor, a family, and often someone at their most vulnerable. That is why this work cannot simply be about numbers. It must always be about people. We have also focused on wider public health priorities, including suicide prevention, prevention strategies, and how assistive technology can help people remain independent and safe in their own homes. I am particularly proud of the strong cross-party way that HASC works. Members from all groups work together to ask difficult questions and push for better outcomes for residents. I'm also pleased we introduced external development sessions with partners like the ICB around areas such as assistive technology, helping members better understand complex issues beyond the formal meetings. My thanks go to all HASC members, co-opted members, officers, and our health partners for their continued commitment and honest engagement. And of course, I will too thank our Democratic Services team. So much of what we do simply would not happen without them. Their work is often behind the scenes, but is absolutely vital, and I certainly could not do this role on HASC without Terry. Her professionalism, patience, and constant support are invaluable, and I know every overview and scrutiny committee would say the same about the officers who support them. They keep everything moving, often without recognition, and they deserve enormous thanks for the care, commitment, and dedication they bring every single day. But Mr. Mayor, let me be clear. Good scrutiny is not about party politics, grandstanding, or individuals trying to make a name for themselves. It is not about sound bites, social media clips, or point scoring for personal gain. The moment scrutiny becomes about ego instead of outcomes is when scrutiny fails. It should not exist just to create headlines. It exists to ask them difficult questions and to challenge where standards fall short and to make sure services always improve. Sometimes that means difficult conversations. Sometimes it means uncomfortable truths. But that is exactly what scrutiny is supposed to do. Because residents do not care about structures, organisations, or who sits in our meetings. They want to know we listened and that we care about them. That must always be our focus, Mr. Mayor, and that is exactly what HASC will continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Field.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And can I just say, this is one of the last times I'll speak under your mayoralty. May I congratulate you on your mayoral term. Tonight, I join my fellow scrutiny and overview chairs, Councillors Tejan, Howcroft Scott and MacDonald, in presenting our annual report of our activities. In presenting this report, I must acknowledge the hard work and professionalism of our democratic services teams, particularly Nicola Couchman, who supports the Regeneration, Culture and Environment Committee with dedication and not a little patience, as well as all the democratic services team led ably by Wayne Hemingway. I must also thank all the officers in the Regeneration, Culture and Environment Department who ably assist in supporting meetings, along with all the committee members, including Councillor Cook as Vice Chair of the committee. Our committee, as set out in the report, undertakes a number of different overview and scrutiny functions over the last year. This has included scrutiny of the 6 portfolio holders whose responsibilities align with our remit, the annual scrutiny of the Medway Community Safety Partnership, reviewing the performance of our waste management and highways maintenance contracts, quarterly monitoring of capital and revenue budgets, along with the One Medway Plan and Risk Register, reviewing the annual budget, providing scrutiny of Medway policies, including this year the Climate Change Action Plan, the Medway Air Quality Action Plan, and the new updated housing allocations policy. We've also received updates on relevant policies and programmes such as the Get Kent and Medway Working Plan, the Shared Prosperity Fund, the Local Transport Plan, and everyone's favourite, School Streets. We also took members' items, including a report into the failures of Southern Water in Christmas 2024, and also the recent Facilities Management Contract Award. We also took public petitions on a number of matters, including maintaining rules and Lordship Lane, providing better pedestrian crossings in Wayfield, and a new bus route that launched this week between Lordswood and Walderslade, linking them with schools in Rainham. This year, we also saw our joint task group with the Health and Adult Social Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee on air quality, public transport and active travel. Our committee deals with the frontline services that Medway residents most often use and engage with. We all know how often bins and potholes come up. There are disagreements and challenges about the best approach to take on these matters, but our collegiate cross-party contribution to overview and scrutiny of these services helps to deliver the services that Medway residents require. Into the next year, there are many important matters that will require our contribution, not least in the delivery of services as we head towards local government reorganisation. There are many challenges ahead of us over the next year, but I'm sure as a committee we will continue to provide the required challenge and support as this council manages the biggest change of a generation.
Thank you. Councillor Howcroft-Scott, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Springett, for what you have done in this year of mayoralty, and also to your gorgeous consuls, including the former Councillor Griffin and Mandy, and especially you, Councillor Clark, because you've been using your walking aids, which I do think promotes disability throughout the borough, and children and young people see you, notice you, and see a place for them in the future. In Medway, so thank you for that. It's been a real privilege to speak today on behalf of Medway Children and Young People's Committee. I want to say how proud I am of what has been achieved this year through partnership, through challenge and unwavering commitment to our children and young people and families of Medway. Children matter in Medway. Well, their well-being matters, their opportunities matter, their future matter, and that, I believe, has guided everything our committee has done. I would like to place a note of thanks on record and my sincere thanks to Stephanie Davis from Democratic Services, who is bright, hardworking and assiduous, and she keeps me on task. And I have ADHD, so I'm very appreciative. Our Director of People, Leanne, and the Assistant Directors, Kelly and Celia, who have supported our committee with dedication, wisdom, endless hard work, their quality of advice, preparation and commitment, enabling our members on my team to do their job effectively with confidence, for which I am truly grateful. I also want to thank every member of the committee from all political groups for their constructive and thoughtful way they approach this important responsibility of scrutiny for the 65,000 children and young people of Medway. We know scrutiny works best, and I feel it's rooted in our shared purpose this year, with members having shown children's interest comes before politics. A special thanks also needs to go to our Parent and Carer Forum, and also the parent governors and head teachers and teachers who serve on my committee, which happens to be the largest. Their valuable time, their contribution to our meetings, their voices, their lived experience and their professional insight and moral purpose for discussion remind us that it's not just us in this chamber that matter, but it is the real children and young people of Medway, their real families and their real future. It is a pleasure to chair this committee. The committee has contributed to and played a vital role in championing the interests and the aspirations of the 65,000 children and young people in Medway. Our work has focused on robust scrutiny, partnership, ensuring that children remain at the heart of everything we do. One of our most significant achievements this year is homeschool home educated focused review. Members listen directly to parents and carers to better understand why families choose to home educate. This is an excellent example of scrutiny grounded in lived experience and helping strengthening our trust in families, and the council shaping its practice recommendations for improvement as well. This committee has maintained close oversight with children's social care. Following Medway's good judgment of Ofsted, we monitored continuity of progress, continuous improvement, ensuring standards continue to rise and that lived experience of children and families remain central to everything we do. Despite ongoing financial pressures, our committee has consistently argued for the protection of frontline services. We have championed early help, prevention and emotional well-being, recognised and invested in recognised and invested and argued for frontline services for our children today and tomorrow. Youth voice has been another major priority through engagement with Medway's Youth Council and our young mayors on the rise, thanks to our lovely cabinet members, Councillor Tracy Coombs and Councillor Adam Price.
Thank you, Councillor Howcroft-Scott. Thank you. And thank you for your kind comments. Now go to any member. Councillor Purvick, your light is on, but I'm not sure if that's a legacy light.
Yeah, real light. Hi. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And look, can I associate myself with the words of Councillor Tijan? I'm a slightly sad person. I think I've watched every single scrutiny committee this year. I don't attend them in person, but I do watch them online, as members of my front bench will attest to you when I provide my comments live in the meeting most of the time when I'm happy, or sometimes not. Anyway, yeah, I think, look, well done to everybody who plays an absolutely vital role in scrutiny, and I think it's really important that we have this report on an annual basis. And I think Councillor Tijan's absolutely right. Scrutiny plays a fundamental role in not only holding the administration to account, but also providing certainty for residents in terms of those services, but also holding partners to account too, particularly through the Health and Adult Social Care Scrutiny Committee that we were referencing earlier. So really pleased with all of the performances of all of the committees, and I think it's really good to also see the strong cross-party working that we see throughout those on a nearly weekly basis, and of course associate myself with the words of everybody on Wayne Hemingway and his brilliant team as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murray, please.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. And I just really want to thank all of the scrutiny committees and all of the staff in democratic services for the actually, I think, very serious and very professional service that we get from them. And in particular, I want to thank you, Dan, because this has been a challenging year for health. There have been all kinds of things from partners that scrutiny have had to get their teeth into, and you've made sure that that can happen with gracious but very, very determined scrutiny. And I think that the services themselves appreciate it, actually, and indeed the new CEO of the ICB has said that he is impressed with scrutiny here in Medway. Like Councillor Perfect, I watch HASC particularly and watch the other committees when I can, because it's important for us as cabinet members to see what is being said, to get ideas and to make sure that when we're involved in policy making, it reflects all the things that are said on scrutiny. And I'm particularly very, very pleased actually about the wider development that's been organised for HASC, because there's so much for those members to take in. It's important to make those make that time for them to speak with people who are involved in services. And I know that the session with Kindy on assistive technology was really well received. So well done, everybody. And can I say, I think this is a much better way of hearing about scrutiny than shoving it to the end of the meeting. It gives us a chance to really look at things and to hear from our chairs about the things that they've been doing.
Thank you. Councillor Maple, please.
Thank you very much indeed, Mayor Clark, and as portfolio holder for finance, but importantly for democracy. It's a real pleasure to hear this debate tonight. And again, picking up on Councillor Murray's final comments there, I think this is a very good way of making sure that we hear across the board for all four important scrutiny committees in a way which, particularly when it was moved to the last item, for legitimate reasons, meant we just weren't getting that level of focus. So it's really important to do that. I want to place on record, like others have, my thanks both to the Overview and Scrutiny chairs, the vice chairs, the opposition spokes, but also the team that make sure that that work happens every single meeting. They are time resourceful, but it's important for that time to be spent well, and it is across all four scrutiny meetings. I also want to take a moment to recognise the task group. Blimey, what a substantial and wide-ranging task group that has been, and again, really pleased that we were able to receive that through Cabinet. So again, a huge thank you to everyone in particular who played their part on that task group, and I know further task groups will happen before the 31st of March 2028. And I mentioned that actually in sense because, of course, as we will hear a lot over the next couple of years, people will be looking onto this council as to what does a unitary authority look like? What does its governance look like? And I will say, without fear or favour, having sat on both sides of this chamber, I think the job of scrutiny is critically important to a good administration. I found it regrettable previously where people were taken off scrutiny when they asked difficult questions of the administration before 2023. That doesn't happen now for the avoidance of doubt. And actually the spread we have across the four scrutiny committee meetings and the four areas I think is important, as well as at least one of the four being chaired by an opposition councillor, a principle which we have believed in since the start of Medway Council. And I would urge all new unitary authorities, however many we end up with, to take that approach as well. I think it's a healthy thing for democracy. So a really good annual report, a really good readable report as well. So again, thank you for those who have worked on what we see in front of us tonight. The next couple of years will give plenty of opportunity to scrutinise plenty of things, and I look forward to this report next year when we see the next 12 months of work. Thank you, Mayor Clark.
Thank you. I have no other member shown. I go back to the proposer, Councillor Tijan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to register my thanks to members for the comment. I think the message from this chamber is clear that scrutiny has been active because it has to be. And we have heard acknowledgement this evening that decisions have been complex, sometimes fast-moving, and at times contentious. That's precisely what scrutiny is all about. You know, I mean, Mr. Mayor, all I want to do is just move the recommendation on 1.1 of the report, that members know the report, and I urge members to support it. Thank you.
Is that agreed, members? Thank you very much. Noting that we will now take agenda item 11 as the final item this evening, we will now move to item 12, the review of polling districts and polling places. Councillor Maple, would you like to make a proposal, please?
Thank you very much indeed, Mayor Clark. I'll move the recommendations as laid out in paragraph 1. Important to note, particularly paragraph 1.7, which will say obviously there will be, if there is a need urgently to change anything before next May's elections, that obviously the Chief Executive will consult with that informal working group on polling districts and polling places. Can I also thank members of that cross-party group? It met and deliberated the issues you can see in front of us. And can I also place on record my thanks to Lauren Jeffrey, who does an excellent job as our acting electoral services manager, and bringing this piece of work together was really important. These are minor changes, in part because of a planning application, which means one of the polling stations will no longer be available. And for the other one, listen carefully to advice and guidance. And the recommendations were the consensus of the meeting, which I was pleased that we reached. And therefore, I don't think there's much need for huge debates tonight, but therefore I move. Thank you.
Is that supported? Councillor Marr, do you wish to speak now or reserve?
Reserve. I'll open to the debate.
Thank you. Councillor Perfect?
Yeah, thank you very much. We were obviously pleased to support this, and I was actually at the informal polling districts and polling places working group. Might need a snazzier title maybe at the annual council meeting, I don't know. Yeah, and I think, look, Lauren and the team do an excellent job under the direction of Bhupinder, the Deputy Returning Officer, according to this report. So, yeah, I think absolutely happy to support this, and I think we had a good discussion with Councillor Sands and the leader, as he referenced in terms of this. So, happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lammas?
Thank you, Chair. Just to add, I would like particular consideration given to Princes Park Ward, not because of the polling places, they've been the same for a long, long time, but at the last local election, it was the case that the historic polling station next to Morrison's, which is next to an old people's area, Christ the King Church, which has always been the natural polling station for the residents in that area, so they literally can walk 20 seconds from their front door to go vote. Those residents could only vote, were invited to vote at Maldine School, which was on the other side of the ward. That caused some confusion. So I just want to make sure that there's no confusion next time around, but I don't think there will be. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no other member. Councillor Hill?
Thank you. On that note, we'll be sure to pass that feedback from Councillor Lammas onto the officers. With regards to the item, I think my position is that the polling districts and polling placing working group is the best working group in the council. That remains my position. And as Councillor MacDonald said in a previous item, that local government work is not about numbers. But sometimes it is, thankfully, and sometimes it's about polling places, and sometimes it's about polling districts and maps, and it gives me something to think about and actually do, which I love. I would now like to talk about the Ballot Act of 1872, but I'm not going to, because I know when an early finish is within reach. So on that, and I wish others did too, on that, I would like to second, or am I moving? No, second points and support points 1.2 to, was it 1.7? Thank you.
Thank you. Back to the proposer, Councillor Maple.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the kind words from Councillor Perfect and the always effervescent words from my friend and former ward colleague, Councillor Marhill. On the points Councillor Lammas raised, obviously that's not for the agenda tonight. I'm sure if you wanted to write to Lauren, for that to be considered. I would say at this stage, bearing in mind and recognising that there will be a conversation more generally about the wards for, and they will be wards in my mind, not divisions, councils have wards, for the new unitary authority, I suspect it may well just be a pass. In these two particular cases, there were practical issues with both of these sites, as you can see within the report. So it was right in case there is a need for that to be dealt with. And certainly in the case of the Hope Centre, a need to find an urgent solution, which we've done. So thank you very much, Mayor Clark.
Thank you. Is that agreed, members? Agreed. Thank you. Come now to agenda item 13, the appointment of independent person, as shown on page 111. Councillor MacDonald, would you like to make a proposal?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I can assure you it's the last time you're going to hear me this evening, and I'm sure members will be glad about that as well. I am pleased to present this report in my capacity as the Chair of the Council Conduct Committee. At the heart of local government is trust, and trust that those elected to serve will do so with integrity, accountability, and the respect for standards expected of our public life. That is why the role of the independent person is so important. The Localism Act 2011 requires every authority to have at least one independent person to provide impartial and independent oversight when allegations of breaches of the Members' Code of Conduct are considered. In addition, regulations require us to have at least two independent persons when dealing with matters relating to the dismissal of senior statutory officers. The report recommends the appointment of Mrs. Rebecca Bayoji as a second independent person following a full and robust recruitment process involving all political groups and a cross-party interview panel, which I was pleased to be part of as chair of this committee. And if recent years have shown us anything, it is that these processes are not simply there to sit quietly on a shelf. They are there to be used, tested, and when necessary, relied upon. Standards matter, members, conduct matters, and public confidence matters too. Sometimes that can be uncomfortable, particularly when the process lands close to home, but accountability is not optional in public life. None of us are above scrutiny, and none of us should ever fear transparency if we are acting in the right way. That is why this appointment is important. It strengthens confidence in our standards regime, ensures fairness and independence, and will reinforce the principle that standards are about protecting the integrity of this council and the trust the public place in us. I would also like to place on record my thanks to our existing independent person, John Greenhill, and to the officers for supporting this work. Members, I must say earlier we mentioned the Joe Cox motion about how we would like to be treated. I would also like to put on record my special thanks to the legal team, who are often, even by some of us, treated in an appalling way. And I want to really put that on record because they do not deserve to be spoken to by anyone, including us as members, in the way they have been put in that position over the last year. I'm therefore pleased, members, to recommend this report to the Council and ask members to support the appointment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is that supported? Councillor Howcroft-Scott, do you wish to speak now or reserve right?
Could I speak now, Mr. Mayor? Thank you very much. I formally second, but finally I want to back up what Councillor Dan MacDonald has said this evening. We need to treat others as we'd like to be treated ourselves, and that is all staff of the council, but particularly legal services who are just doing their jobs. So we are stronger when we treat everybody with fairness and respect. So I welcome this position being independent, and I hope we will positively engage in doing our best to have that mutual respect to make us proud in Medway of everybody that works here and everybody in the community we're elected to represent. Thank you.
Councillor Perfect, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and associate myself with the words of Councillor MacDonald and Councillor Howcroft-Scott. And can I also thank Councillor Brake, actually, for his work as part of the interview panel on behalf of our group on this. Did a great job, and I'm sure Ms. Bayoji will obviously fulfil the role of independent person to the best of her abilities and for the betterment of the council's code of conduct and all. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. I have no other member. I go back to the proposer, Councillor MacDonald.
As set out, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that agreed, members? Thank you very much. Come now to agenda item 14, the establishment of committees, appointments and schedule of meetings 2026 through 2027, as described on page 117. Councillor Peake, would you like to make a proposal?
Thank you, Mayor Clark. This report deals with some administrative matters ahead of the annual council meeting on the 13th of May. Excuse me. In relation to political balance, committees and outside bodies, plus the schedule of meetings following the Group Weeks meeting held last month, I would like to highlight the following matters for members' attention. Political balance was most recently reviewed earlier this year. No changes are necessary other than to report in a fall in the overall number of committee seats caused by the recommendation to decommission the School Transport and Curriculum Appeals Committee as highlighted in paragraph 451 of the report. It is also recommended that the Medway Pensioners Forum is removed as a co-opted, non-voting member of the Health and Adult Social Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee for the reasons set out in paragraph 4.5.2 of the report. That is to say, non-attendance at meetings since 2019. The report makes a number of recommended changes to our outside bodies as set out in paragraph 4.6 of the report. In particular, I would highlight the formal recommendation from the Standing Advisory Council on Religious Education to include the humanist non-religious worldview to its membership and the associated case law at paragraph 6.4 of the report. There is one change to the scheduled meetings in relation to the June 2026 Health and Wellbeing Board meeting date, which is covered in paragraph 5.2 of the report. With that, I will propose the recommendations as set out on page 117 of the agenda at paragraphs 1.11 to 1.15 of the report. Thank you, Mayor Clark.
Thank you. Is that supported? Councillor Kemp, do you wish to speak now or reserve?
I'll speak now, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. In seconding this proposal, I would like to place on record my thanks to the Democratic Services team for the sterling work they carry out behind the scenes. This year alone has seen dozens of changes to committee and outside body membership, each of which requires careful coordination by officers alongside their normal day-to-day duties. It's no small task and has been handled with great professionalism. It's a job very well done, so thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I have no member showing, so I come back to you, Councillor Peake.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say well said, and I fully endorse what you've just said. No other comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that agreed, members? Thank you. Moving on. Agenda item 15, review of the Council's petition scheme as described on page 147. Turning to this agenda item, please note that as the recommendations in this report seek to amend the Council rules, once proposed and seconded, this report will be taken forward without discussion for debate at the next ordinary meeting of the Council in July. Councillor Maple, would you like to make a proposal?
Thank you very much indeed, Mayor Clark. I'm very happy to do so and move the recommendations as laid out in paragraph 1. 2 or 3 things. I'll say more in July, so I will reserve my right to say more in July. But I'll say a few things quickly now. Firstly, of course, we recognise the brilliant work done by the 4 overview and scrutiny committees in the annual report. Of course, one of the ways, until recently, effectively the only real way a resident could raise something outside of full council was through the petition scheme to ensure that they have that opportunity, I'd say disproportionately to the RCE Overview and Scrutiny Committee, but of course open to all 4 depending on what they're petitioning on. What we see in front of us here is something which actually Scrutiny a year ago said they wanted to come back and have a look at, something which several of us have talked about for some time, and that's recognising that as a council, we'd want to see as many opportunities for the public, not for us as elected members, but for the public to raise their concerns. Now, I happened to be in the room for this particular item because it was straight after I was held to account well by members across the political spectrum, and I was surprised to see the level of resistance from some councillors to this. I would hope that all councillors would want our public, the 292,000 people, to be able to raise their issues in whichever way they felt possible and appropriate for them. Of course, we have the existing Medway Council petition scheme, and I'll talk about that before we finish. But of course, as well, many other people use other tools and techniques. Some use the traditional pen and paper, but others choose to use other online facilities. And I think it's important to recognise that, in my view, and the view of many people actually, it should be the case that that is now accepted by us as a council. That will be for us to decide in July because it is a change to the constitutional process. Therefore, it is appropriate for it to be held over. The final thing I want to say this evening, I want to thank the Vice Chair of Business Support, Councillor Hamilton. She raised a really important point around security of our own existing systems and ensuring that we can improve that. And I'm pleased to confirm tonight that for any new users of the Medway Council system, the capture security element, most people will be aware of what that is. Often that makes you want to find out how many bicycles or traffic lights or bridges or whatever it is that day. To secure that system, we've now put that in place. So again, a real life example, real time example of something coming directly from scrutiny and already being enacted. So thank you very much to Councillor Hamilton for raising that, and I'm really pleased. And I want to add to the very long but worthwhile and worthy list that have thanked Wayne Hemingway and the team. They are phenomenal, they are award-winning, and I'm incredibly proud of the work they do to make democracy work in Medway. So we will go back to this at the next full council meeting, and I look forward to that. And I genuinely hope we see a very strong consensus supporting increased opportunities for Medway residents to raise their concerns with this council. Thank you, Mayor Clark.
Is that supported? Thank you. Thank you, members. You will be able to debate and vote on this report at the July meeting. Moving on to agenda item 16, reports for information, as on page 171. This report is included for information only and not for debate. Accordingly, members have received the report. Turning back now to agenda item 11. Before I propose we go into closed session, I will ask Councillor Llewellyn-Prenter to make a proposal and ask for that to be supported. If it is then agreed we go into closed session, we will do that. But if any members wish to speak in open session without referring to the blue pages, please wait until we bring the press and public back into the room for the decisions on this report. Clearly, if any amendments are moved in closed session, they will need to be debated then. Councillor Prenter.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. So this report outlines the details concerning a proposal to acquire by our housing revenue account the Medway-based stock profile of 791 properties from a registered provider's tenanted stock. This is located in Medway. The purchase will require an additional to the capital programme of £45.95 million, including associated fees. Our landlord services were advised of this potential transfer opportunity as part of the registered provider's asset disposal and rationalisation strategy, and the background is laid out clearly in the report. I'm positive that all members know this, but I cannot stress enough that this purchase and its associated borrowing will be ring-fenced within the HRA and will not form part of the general fund. The purchase will give those Medway residents who are the current tenants in these properties a safe, secure home and a good, easily accessible landlord in Medway Council. It will provide secure tenancies going forward for those Medway residents in the same way as it does for those who live in Medway-owned housing now, Medway Council-owned housing now. By purchasing this stock, this will ensure that we do not lose social housing in Medway to other entities. This means Medway Council will have 100% nomination rights to allocate those on Medway's housing list to these properties in the future when they become available, and will house Medway residents and their families long after any borrowing is repaid. Once taken over by Medway Council, the properties will be managed and maintained with overview by the HRA Governance Group, which has cross-party membership, with Councillor Tajan sitting alongside Councillor Curry and I, as well as tenants, in the same way as all other HRA properties. The properties will be absorbed into our management areas and current operational teams without creating unmanageable pressures. Capacity of those teams will grow in accordance with the increased numbers and increased rental income. High-level financial modelling has been undertaken by Savills within the HRA for the borrowing, and this has been stress-tested with varied interest rates. I should like to remind members that the HRA are able to access preferential interest rates to that of the General Fund. This modelling has indicated that the acquisition would be viable. The purchase would, of course, be subject to financial and regulatory due diligence. Members should also be reminded that access to permanent housing is critical in our efforts to provide safe, secure homes for our residents, and aligns with the Council's housing strategy by securing social housing stock and ensuring its continued availability for Medway residents, as well as aligning with our Priority 5 in the Council's One Medway plan, which is living in good quality, affordable homes. Members, please support the recommendations and show your support that you support the provision of safe, secure, affordable homes for Medway residents and their families, both now and long into the future. With that, I'll now formally move the recommendations, which you should all have been circulated in the room now. Please note that recommendation 1.1 is the same as set out in the covering report, but that recommendation 1.2 now references the council decision this evening, if approved, is subject to the outcome of the current calling process in respect of Cabinet's decisions 60, 62 and 63. Thank you, Mayor Clark.
Thank you. Is that supported? Councillor Curry, do you wish to speak now?
I'll speak now if that's okay. I'm say it in open session. I think really the key to this at its heart is the responsibility that we have to provide the affordable housing that is of good quality for the residents in our community. This is our priority 5, as mentioned already by Councillor Llewellyn Prenter. Our Medway plan has this at its heart, and this is the basis for our housing strategy. We all understand that good quality homes are the key to the health and well-being of our community and crucial to the delivery of our Marketplace agenda, something that was mentioned right at the start of this council meeting. This transfer guarantees this for hundreds of people in our community, but it does so much more than that as well. We know that our HRA housing services are a benchmark for quality in Medway, something that all housing providers in Medway should aspire to. We know what the conditions are in some of our private rented sector at the moment, particularly in my own ward in Luton. And what we provide as a Medway provider is amazing in comparison to that. I'm a member of the HRA Governance Group, which is cross-party, as has been said, and this meets on a regular basis to scrutinise the work of the team that's carrying out all this work. This HRA team clearly has the skills and the experience to take on this new provision. There are very clear financial analysis done of the proposals, which have been conducted both internally and by external advisors. The HRA, the cross-party HRA group, oversees all aspects of the business plan, financial monitoring, and ensures that the long-term security for our housing tenants. I strongly recommend that colleagues support this report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will now move that the Council has recommended to exclude the press and public to enable consideration of any information contained in the exempt appendices to this item as set out on pages 189 to 213 of the agenda, and which is summarised on page 187 of the agenda, because consideration of this matter in public would disclose information falling within paragraph 3 of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972, and in all the circumstances of the case, the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. Is this supported? Thank you. Is this agreed, members? Agreed. Thank you. I will now ask, please, that the public gallery be cleared and the live stream broadcast paused. And while this is going on, members, we will have a short comfort break. Thank you. If you just pause while the mace is tilted. members of the press and public readmitted to the session? And is the live stream back on, please? Thank you. Thank you, members. We are now, as we said, we're debating a substantive motion. If you've already spoken in closed session, obviously on the substantive, you are not permitted to speak. Councillor Maple.
Thank you very much, and welcome back to our friends from the Post and Public, and indeed those who are watching online. Let me give you a match of the day style what you've missed without going into the blue papers. We were very pleased as an administration to make it clear repeatedly that in each one of the three call-in decisions that have been called in by the opposition group, the words due and diligence are in there. That's very important to this administration. We look at that carefully, and certainly I have absolute faith and confidence in my friend and colleague, Councillor Llewellyn-Prenter, and indeed the officers involved in this as well. And that's all laid out in the report you see in front of you today. The risk for this community, not for this council, for this community, if this doesn't go ahead, is that close to 800 homes, which currently have Medway residents from the Home Choice Scheme on there is a risk, if we don't make this purchase, that they won't be filled with people from the Medway Home Choice Scheme. That doesn't mean that we do the deal blind. That means we do the due diligence. But we've got to get on with it, because from my perspective, that risk is too great. And I know colleagues here will say, we're not worried, but that's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to delay it to put that risk there, but it does put that risk there. Every week makes that more of a risk than it was the week before. So, and we spoke about the call-in, and I obviously respect the opposition's ability to do that, and I will be watching that meeting carefully and closely. So I'm very proud as council leader that we've taken this proactive step. If we weren't doing this, if another council were buying nearly 800 properties in Medway to allow their residents to move into Medway on their home choice system or their equivalent, there would be outrage, rightfully so. This administration has stepped in to say, let's at all potential opportunities stop that from happening. So I'm very proud, particularly of my friend and colleague, Councillor Llewellyn-Prenter, for her work on this personally. And of course, people will say, well, does our system have the scope and capability to deal with this? It is a massive piece of work to be done. And I recognise Councillor Howard-Doe in his contribution earlier on, and absolutely respect his position on this, but we cannot put that at risk. We cannot put that at risk, and that's why Decision 62 is so important, to bring in that expertise. So I will be voting in favour of this tonight, but rest assured, if it is not a good deal for Medway, myself and Councillor Prenter will not proceed. We say that 3 times in the 3 decisions that have been called in, so rest assured that will be the case. Thank you, Mayor Clark.
Thank you. Councillor Perfect, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just to provide I'm going to provide a very brief summary on behalf of the Conservative opposition.
Sorry, Councillor Perfect. Councillor Lowas, is there a point?
I have a legal question. Given that the decision we're being asked to consider delegates the authority to the executive, who then gets to decide if the due diligence is good or not, is the statement that was given earlier this evening by the leader that this will happen, does that legally prejudice his decision-making authority in the process, given that he stated opinion before the facts have come to light? I'd like the legal position on that. Thank you.
Monitoring Officer, please respond.
I think members need to consider the statements with a degree of latitude. The leader of the council is not under oath, he is not in a court, and I have personally complete confidence that those with the powers delegated to them will exercise those carefully and with due consideration, with consideration of all relevant material factors and not considering irrelevant matters, because clearly, if invited, I will be giving advice to make sure that that is followed. Thank you.
Councillor Perfect, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, just to summarise really from the Conservative opposition's position in terms of the conversation that we've just had in closed session, we will be voting against this item. We proposed an amendment to the recommendations reflecting our concerns pertaining to the decision-making power and authority of the full council being delegated to the leader and the cabinet member during the discussion. We have significant concerns regarding the 20% growth in the housing revenue account, and we do not currently feel that the full council is in a position to take a decision on this item, and have therefore also, in addition to this, called in the decision to the Regeneration, Culture and Environment Overview and Scrutiny Committee at a date to be held shortly before annual council. And therefore we will be holding further discussions at that point, where we hope to have further discussion around the decision-making process of the Cabinet Member for Homelessness and Housing and also the wider Cabinet on this decision. Thank you.
Councillor Mandrakis, please.
So I'm so pleased to support this proposal to bring these homes into council ownership. I'm also pleased to hear Councillor Perfect say that he supports the actions we're taking across the council to reduce the life expectancy gap. Good quality housing is a major factor in life expectancy, so I'm quite confused to hear that the group isn't emphatically supporting this decision. As a council tenant, I can say that time and again, when housing is publicly owned and locally managed, residents are better off. We're a responsible, accountable landlord. We invest in our homes, we uphold standards, and we treat tenants with dignity and respect. Something we should be proud of and something we should be seeking to extend to more people. This proposal allows us to do exactly that. At a time when too many families face insecurity, rising rents and inconsistent service, bringing these homes into council ownership is a practical step that strengthens public provision and puts residents first. It's an opportunity to grow our housing stock in a way that protects communities rather than fragmenting them. And I'm particularly pleased that the purchase will ensure a greater parity of services for residents across my ward. People living in close proximity should not experience different levels of care or responsiveness simply because of who their social landlord is. Council ownership means consistent standards, clearer accountability and a stronger voice for tenants. Much of what we've heard from members opposite talks about this as just spend. Council tenants pay rent. This is 791 rents coming to us rather than another provider. It's also about long-term thinking. Instead of allowing homes to drift further away from local control, we're taking responsibility, safeguarding existing tenancies and committing to those communities for the future. It's what strong local government looks like, stepping in where we can make a real difference. For me, the proposal reflects the kind of council we want to be, ambitious, fair and willing to act in the interests of working residents. It shows that we're serious about expanding publicly owned housing and about using the tools available to us to improve people's lives. For those reasons, I'm really pleased to support this proposal and I encourage colleagues to do the same.
Thank you. I have no other members showing. Do you have a point again, Councillor?
Yeah. Apologies for the keep doing the points of order. I would just like to invite the last speaker, if she would like to correct the record for inadvertently, potentially misleading the chamber when she said that 791 properties pay rents. Indeed, in the due diligence, only 569 properties pay rents.
Thank you. I would ask the monitoring officer if that is a relevant point.
I think the point has been made and there's nothing further to say.
Okay. Thank you. I have no other members showing, so I will go back to the proposer of the item, Councillor Llewellyn-Prenter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, and thank you to all members for your contributions this evening. I want to reassure members that a holistic view of all properties will form part of the regulatory and financial due diligence process that will be undertaken. Not like the Conservatives, who undertook huge purchases of items like their approval of 45 million to buy the Pentagon Centre with only a single valuation. We will ensure proper financial and regulatory due diligence takes place. Councillor Tajan, you sit on the HRA governance group alongside Councillor Curry and I. You will have seen first-hand the level of financial due diligence.
Thank you. Just a moment, please, Councillor Prenter. Councillor Perfect.
Councillor Llewellyn-Prenter needs to calm down on the use of the Pentagon. There was full due diligence taken. It was at the council. It came to the full council chamber, Mr. Mayor, and it was supported by the Labour and cooperative group that the leader of the council was leader of the opposition at the time. Thank you very much.
Point has been made. Thank you, members. Please, if we could just rein it in so that Councillor Prenter can continue with the sum up, please?
Thank you, Mayor Clark. And I think Councillor Perfect should calm down because I'm not the one jumping up on my feet talking about this and ranting. So if I could continue, I feel Councillor Shajan sits on the HRA governance group alongside Councillor Curry and he would have seen first-hand, Mayor Clark, the level of financial due diligence and governance that takes place concerning the HRA on a day-to-day basis. And Councillor Shajan, you of all people should be reassured by the financial monitoring from Savills as part of that board, as well as the monitoring as shown in our regulatory judgment of C2, when we're of course working towards that C1. We wouldn't be doing that if we didn't have this governance and monitoring that you're part of. Members should once again be reassured that the HRA is ring-fenced and that all borrowing is generally at preferential rates. This acquisition aligns with our Labour administration ambitions to increase our social housing stock here in Medway for Medway residents. And this is a good opportunity to secure a large number of social housing in a single transaction, safeguarding it for the future generations of Medway residents and their families, and giving long-term benefits for Medway people. Voting against this proposal means voting against providing safe, secure, affordable homes for Medway residents and their families, both now and in the future. Thank you, Mayor Clark.
Thank you. We will now move to... Hold on, I need 6. Okay, recorded vote has been called. Chief Executive. Thank you. Mr. Chief Executive, please. Members, thank you. We're now moving to the recorded votes. And reminder, the live stream is still on, members.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, members, you are voting on the proposition put forward by Councillor Luella Prenter. I will call each member in turn and I will ask you whether you are voting for or against or whether you are abstaining. Councillor Anang. Councillor Bowen. Councillor Brake. Mr. Mayor. Again. Councillor Cook. Councillor Coombs. Councillor Crozer. Councillor Curry. Councillor Doe. Councillor Etheridge. Left the meeting. Councillor Fern. Sorry, I missed Councillor Fern's vote. Thank you. Councillor Field. Councillor Filmer. Councillor Finch. Councillor Gilbourne. Councillor Gurung. Councillor Hackwell. Councillor Hammondishe. Councillor Hamilton. Councillor Howcroft-Scott. Councillor Hubbard. Councillor Hine was also gone. Councillor Jackson. Councillor Jones. Councillor Joy. Councillor Kemp. Councillor Lamas. Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Marhill. Councillor Mandarakis. Councillor Maple. Councillor MacDonald. Councillor Murray. Councillor Myton. Councillor Nestorov. Councillor Nestorova. Councillor Patterson. Councillor Peake. Councillor Pearce. Councillor Perfect. Councillor Luella Prenter. Councillor Mark Prenter. Councillor Price. Councillor Sands. Councillor Shockar. Mr. Deputy Mayor. Councillor Stamp. Councillor Tijan. Councillor Mrs. Turpin. Councillor Van Dyke. Councillor Vi. Mr. Mayor, the proposition is carried.
Thank you, members. I would just like to thank our live stream viewers for watching the meeting this evening, and there being no further business, I declare the meeting closed. Please stand for the mace. Thank you.
you.